Chapter 226, Chapter 226, The Lawless Tower. Chapter 226, The Lawless Tower. The matter of the outer sect spirit herb garden wasn't very significant. Jiang Hao wasn't worried about what Xia Cheng would do or say. Moreover, from the recent encounter, it was clear that Xia Cheng was someone who cherished his life. So, it was safe to assume that he wouldn't take any risks. The reason he was causing trouble for others was because of the sudden rise in his status. He was designated as the one in charge of the spirit herb garden, and others tried to stay on his good side. That went to his head, especially since no one else had higher cultivation than him. Power was addictive, and it made people reckless. Jiang Hao faced the same problem every time he advanced to a new stage or a new realm. The allure of power and strength often made him arrogant. Fortunately, the heaven extinction GU poison often kept him calm in those situations. However, that wasn't a long-term solution. He needed to make use of the poison to train his mind while he could. In the future, he could break away from the poison without it causing significant damage to him. Now, there is no need for me to frequent the outer sect spirit herb garden. Cheng Chou can handle it. After that, the traitor might start contacting Cheng Chou to discover the location of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Then he might come looking for me. I don't know if he will try to recruit me to his cause or directly attack me. Roughly, there were 3 types of people targeting the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. The first types of traitors were often the most foolish ones. They would try to steal the flower. No one had done that yet, but Jiang Hao wasn't sure if the new spy was of that kind. The second type was Liu Xingchen and Ming Yi, who often tried to establish some form of contact with him and convert him to their cause. Some did it for the flower, and others did it just for entertainment. Some did it for the flower, and others did it just for entertainment. The third type was the Black Heaven sect's Hua Le, who observed from afar. Jiang Hao discovered the name when he appraised Shenyuan Tai. So far, he hadn't found any more information about the person named Hua Le. They were very good at hiding. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Hao went to the library. He saw the old man who was in charge of the library and handed him a spirit stone. "I remember you. What do you want to ask this time?" The old man discreetly pocketed the spirit stone. "I would like to know which book contains the most comprehensive records about the sects," said Jiang Hao. "The book with the most comprehensive records about the sects." The old man thought for a while and then said, "Go upstairs and search for a book called Biography of the Mountains and the Seas. It probably has what you're looking for. Lately, many people have been coming here to find books because of the sect's mission." The old man was all smiles. He had earned quite a lot in the past few days. His knowledge about this place was finally paying off. Everyone could afford to spend a spirit stone for information, and the old man wasn't greedy. Jiang Hao went up to the 3rd floor and found many people there. The old man was right. Everyone was searching for information on the mysterious seed. After searching for a while, Jiang Hao found the Biography of the Mountains and the Seas. He quickly skimmed through the pages. It was a travelogue that recorded information about different sects. He finally came across a page that detailed the Divine Corpse sect, a major sect in the northern region. Its cultivation techniques are peculiar and include clones. Jiang Hao frowned. Is that all? However, the information surprised him. How was it that someone from the northern region found out about the Heavenly Note sect's Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower? Is the Divine Corpse sect related to the Corpse Realm flower? Jiang Hao wondered. He recalled the previous attack by the powerful individual. "I can't ask the people from the stone tablet." He had intended to ask Gui how to make the spirit field fertile, or about the Divine Corpse sect. However, he thought that was a bad idea. What if Dan Yuan got suspicious? If Dan Yuan had a close connection with the Divine Corpse sect, he might find out that Jiang Hao was from the Heavenly Note sect. Jiang Hao flipped to the page about the Black Heaven sect. The Black Heaven sect wasn't as big as the Divine Corpse sect. It seemed that the latter sect was very important. Their cultivation technique was something that needed to be paid attention to. Dealing with clones was troublesome. The main body was hard to catch, and killing the clones did nothing. After that, Jiang Hao looked up the red feather divine pill. It was only mentioned briefly in one book, with no details about its effects. He went to find the old man and gave him another spirit stone. The man refused. The old man cleared his throat and glanced at Jiang Hao with a smile. I might be a lot of things, but knave is not one of them. Just ask what you want to know. I saw a pill called the red feather divine pill in one of the books. What kind of pill is it? Jiang Hao asked. The red feather divine pill? The old man lowered his head and was deep in thought. It should be a healing pill. It is said to be made from a divine bird. There is no such bird in the surrounding areas, let alone in our sect. It is doubtful whether the pill exists in the entire southern region. There are very few records about it. I see. Jiang Hao thanked him and left. He had intended to ask about the price of such a pill. Since it wasn't found in the southern region, he didn't dare ask about it. However, various sects have deep reserves, so there might still be a chance to find it somewhere. Just as Jiang Hao left the library, he saw a communication talisman flying toward him. He reached out to accept it. Head to the Lawless Tower. Someone wants to see you, said Elder Baiji's voice. The Lawless Tower? Jiang Hao couldn't think of anyone in there who would want to see him. However, he couldn't disobey an order from Elder Baiji. Shortly after, he arrived near the Lawless Tower. He walked to the front of the tower. The tower stood on top of a mountain. It had 13 floors. It looked majestic and ominous. It was hard to imagine how such a tower could take away everything a person held dear. In front of the tower, Jiang Hao saw Ju Chan. Junior brother Jiang, you came quickly. Ju Chan, dressed in white, walked toward him. Senior sister Ju, were you waiting for me? Jiang Hao asked. This is what the elder asked me to give you. It's about your mission. Ju Chan handed him an envelope. Jiang Hao sensed a faint power emanating from the envelope. It was to preve others from prying. Junior brother Jiang, you can open it with your identity token. Ju Chan bade him farewell and left. After saying goodbye to senior sister Ju, Jiang Hao opened the envelope. Go to the 5th floor of the Lawless Tower. Enter special prison, room num 1, and meet the one who wants the flower in your courtyard. Try to find out more about the person's background, purpose, and who he is working for without revealing too much information. Jiang Hao continued reading and found out some basic information about the imprisoned individual. He was from the Divine Corpse sect. Jiang Hao sighed. As expected, the recent spies and the sect's mission were related to the Divine Corpse sect. Chapter 227. Chapter 227. Pique his interest. Chapter 227. Pique his interest. Inside the envelope, there was a piece of jade. It was a treasure that provided protection against the Lawless Tower. The effect would last for a day. Holding the jade, Jiang Hao passed through the guards and entered the Lawless Tower. He saw a spacious hall. In the center, there were a few people trapped inside. They were mostly in the lifeblood refinement realm. Some people led them away. Most people would be sent to the mines to work. They would be made to work until they died. Those who managed to reach the Foundation establishment realm while working in the mines would be brought back here. The prisoners were nothing but tools for the Heavenly Note sect. Jiang Hao ignored them and continued to the 5th floor. Apart from the people trapped in the center, there were special rooms located in the corners. The rooms were made of mahogany. The room looked more like a cage with runes inscribed on it. Jiang Hao couldn't understand the purpose of the runes. A middle-aged man sat in one of the cages. His disheveled hair covered his face. His body was covered in dried blood. His hands and feet were locked with wooden restraints. Although it all looked crude, it could effectively confine any powerful individual. He is currently in the primordial spirit realm, but it's depleting fast. Although he is resisting the effects, it's useless. Jiang Hao gripped the piece of jade tighter in his hand. You brought a little guy to interrogate me today? The middle-aged man looked up at Jiang Hao and smiled. I've told you. I won't say anything unless I see the flower. Jiang Hao checked the floor and the room number to confirm that this was the man he was supposed to meet. Are you from the Divine Corpse sect? He asked. Haven't you asked that question many times already? The middle-aged man leaned back. Is it amusing to ask the same question repeatedly? I want to see the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Jiang Hao used his daily appraisal ability on the man. If the person before him was really the powerful individual from the recent attack, then Jiang Hao would have already completed the mission assigned by Dan Yuan. He had hoped to wait for the sect's announcement to find out more about this person and use the information as leverage in the next gathering. But now, Jiang Hao was directly involved in this now, and he couldn't tell Dan Yuan about it. Besides, Elder Baiji had given him this mission and some information about the person. As a double agent, Jiang Hao felt that even a slight misstep could bring disaster upon him. He needed to handle things carefully. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. The Heavenly Note sect truly wasn't that big of a sect. He encountered traitors and spies everywhere. Chu Zhong was the true form of the divine corpse Du Yong, whom Jiang Hao had met in the outer sect spirit herb garden. What is a corpse heart? Jiang Hao felt that he knew too little about this. However, one thing was clear. He needed to make sure no one buried anything near his house. Bai Yi's techniques and the corpse heart made Jiang Hao understand that the cultivation world wasn't limited to just treasures. Bai Yi suspected him and used sealing techniques and his own environment to poison him. Now, there was the corpse heart. As long as it was buried nearby, the deed would be done. It's a pity that I used the wrong method. If I had been undercover from the beginning, I might not have discovered it. The person investigating the undercover traitor is far inferior in cultivation level, so it would be difficult to find out anything more. Senior, you want to see the heavenly fragrance Dao flower? Jiang Hao stood in front of the prison cell calmly. He was thinking about what to do next. Zhuang Yuzhen sneered. You are in the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. You expect me to believe you can make any sort of decision regarding that? No. Jiang Hao shook his head. Then get lost, Zhuang Yuzhen said with disgust. But the flower is in my hands, Jiang Hao said. Do you want to talk to me? The flower is in your hands. Zhuang Yuzhen found it unbelievable. If you don't want to talk right now, I can come in a few days, said Jiang Hao as he turned around. Wait, Zhuang Yuzhen said. Jiang Hao ignored him and left without looking back. He heard the man shout at him from behind. Stop right there. Don't expect me to talk if you leave now. Jiang Hao ignored him. After all, he was just a prisoner. He didn't need to indulge him. The reason he left wasn't because he was in a hurry to get away. He needed to think about this. He knew the man's weakness. He needed to find the real Chu Zhong. If he played his cards well, he could complete Elder Baiji's task and Dan Yuan's task at the same time. As for Zhuang Yuzhen, he would bring him a gift next time. He would be more inclined to chat with him then. After leaving the Lawless Tower, the jade pendant dissipated in his hand. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Hao headed straight for White Moon Lake. He still needed to report his findings. At White Moon Lake, there were two people guarding the entrance. One was Ju Chan, and the other was a young girl in the lifeblood refinement realm. It was Zhao Qingxue, Lin Ji's friend. Seeing the girl dressed in luxurious silk and satin and rapidly advancing in her cultivation realm, Jiang Hao felt that she and Lin Ji already belonged to different worlds. She might soon enter the inner sect. Meanwhile, it might take years for Lin Ji to reach that state. Senior Sister Ju. Jiang Hao walked up to Ju Chan. Junior brother Jiang, you are here so soon. Ju Chan smiled and then pointed to the girl. This is Junior Sister Zhao, a friend of your junior brother Lin. Senior brother Jiang, it's very nice to meet you, said Zhao Qingxue as she bowed to him. Jiang Hao nodded and explained his purpose for visiting. Come with me, junior brother Jiang. I'll take you to see the elder. She is still here, said Ju Chan. Chapter 228, Chapter 228. After I utter a name, you will fear me. Chapter 228. After I utter a name, you will fear me. Jiang Hao passed by the spirit herb garden of the White Moon Lake and saw many people gathered there. Each person had a very high cultivation realm. Although they didn't have the advantage of the numbers of the Cliff of Broken Hearts, their level and talent exceeded the Cliff of Broken Hearts. The White Moon Lake only accepted disciples with exceptional talent. Meanwhile, the Cliff of Broken Hearts accepted anyone who had average talent. It wasn't easy to determine who was stronger between the inner sect disciples of the White Moon Lake and the legacy disciples of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Logically, the legacy disciples should be superior in strength to ordinary inner sect disciples, but becoming an inner sect disciple in the White Moon Lake was the most difficult and prestigious thing. The Law Enforcement Hall was also quite extraordinary based on the types of disciples they chose. After the sect's mission was issued, the seniors became obsessed with the seed. However, there has been no progress at all, said Ju Chan helplessly. They don't even bother with guarding the place anymore. I had to ask junior sister Zhao for help. Jiang Hao nodded. The situation in the Cliff of Broken Hearts was similar. It was fortunate that the Spirit Herb Gardens didn't need to be guarded very much in the sect. Arrived at Elder Baiji's courtyard and saw a white figure standing by the lake. The tranquil lake water reflected her graceful figure. Elder, junior brother Jiang requests an audience, Ju Chan said respectfully. Baiji turned around. All right. You can go and continue with your work. Ju Chan bowed and left. Greetings, Elder Baiji, said Jiang Hao politely. Did you find out anything? Baiji's calm gaze focused on him. She was unable to guess the sect master's intentions for nurturing this man before her. No. I just had a conversation with him. Jiang Hao told her everything that had come to pass. You want to pique his interest? Baiji smiled. He is not an ordinary person. Every word that comes out of his mouth may be a lie to conceal his true intentions. Each seemingly sincere word is an undisputed falsehood meant to confuse those before him. Are you sure you want to continue? I want to give it a try, Jiang Hao said. In that case, go ahead, said Baiji. It was an opportunity for her to observe Jiang Hao too. If he managed to uncover some information in the process, that would be a bonus. After receiving the jade pendant that allowed multiple entries, Jiang Hao left White Moon Lake. He didn't need to rush to meet Shuang Yuzhen. Instead, he wanted to see if the other undercover agent would take any action. If he buried the corpse heart, it would be for the best. However, Jiang Hao wasn't sure if he could seal the corpse heart with his cultivation at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. If all else failed, he would find an excuse to turn it in. Jiang Hao resumed his daily routine after returning to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. After about a month, the number of people at the Spirit Herb Garden decreased. Many gave up on the seed. The other branches faced the same thing. The Candlelight Pill Pavilion was no exception. They couldn't determine whether the white seed was really a spirit herb or not. Without identifying what it was, they couldn't really grow it. Eventually, a woman from Thunderfire Peak suggested that it might be a corpse realm flower. She found a description of it in a book she bought off the street. Unfortunately, it only provided details about the appearance of the seed and the flower and nothing else. Others started collecting books to find out even a shred of information about the seed. The business of buying and selling books on the street boomed. The library in the sect wasn't enough, so they had to gather books from everywhere. Some even went near Azure Mountain to infiltrate and investigate the books. Others resorted to capturing people to forcefully snatch away the books related to the seed. Didn't pay much attention to it, but Cheng Cho would occasionally mention it when he returned to the garden. During this half-month period, the divine corpse Du Yong visited twice, claiming that he wanted to see the spirit herb garden of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Jiang Hao didn't stop him. He remained cautious but hoped that the person would make a move. Another month had passed. Jiang Hao looked at the immortal peach tree which was taller than him now. He wondered how many spirit stones he would need this time. He had saved up only 1,300 spirit stones over the past month. He decided to stop making the Heaven Secrets hidden talisman. It wasn't necessary since its use was limited. Afterward, he took a stroll around the area but didn't discover anything. Du Yong had visited 3 times, but he never stayed for long. Jiang Hao was uncertain about his intentions. It seems I'll have to wait. Jiang Hao sighed wearily. The work on the outer sect spirit herb garden was running smoothly, with the most outstanding contribution from the Candlelight Pill Pavilion. Other branches didn't even want to compete. The Cliff of Broken Hearts was also doing well. Jiang Hao headed to the spirit herb garden and noticed fewer people gathered around the corpse realm flower seed. Despite having researched diligently, no one had been able to make it germinate. There was no progress at all. The Candlelight Pill Pavilion concluded that this was no ordinary seed but an extraordinary treasure. However, to others, their words were nonsense. After collecting the bubbles, Jiang Hao left the Cliff of Broken Hearts and headed toward the Lawless Tower. It was time to meet Zhuang Yuzhen. His disciple had yet to make a move, leaving Jiang Hao somewhat disappointed. He understood that if Zhuang Yuzhen only dared to send the clone here, it meant he was highly cautious. He wouldn't take any rash actions without being certain of his safety, especially when it involved the corpse heart. Jiang Hao speculated that the corpse heart was with the main body of Chu Zhong, which was likely located somewhere near the Heavenly Note sect. Jiang Hao had to make Zhuang Yuzhen believe that everything was all right so that he would give instructions to his disciple to bury the corpse heart. He arrived at the 5th floor of the Lawless Tower. The man was still in room number 1. "We meet again," Jiang Hao said. Zhuang Yuzhen raised his head slowly and glanced at Jiang Hao. "You claim that the heavenly fragrance Dao flower is in your hands. On what basis do you claim such a thing?" he asked weakly. "On what basis?" Jiang Hao thought about it for a while. "I can't answer that. It's up to you to choose to believe me or not." Zhuang Yuzhen sneered. "Then I don't believe you. Just leave." Remained calm. "The corpse realm flower seeds belong to you, right?" "Bah." Zhuang Yuzhen spat. "You'll get nothing from me. If you want me to talk, show me the heavenly fragrance Dao flower." "It seems I'm right," Jiang Hao said nonchalantly. "Can you tell me how to it? I already know about it, but it's better coming from you." "Are you deaf?" Zhuang Yuzhen laughed maniacally. "Now, you're just an me. Leave." Jiang Hao didn't mind his words. He stepped forward and gestured to Zhu Yuzhen. Then he retracted his hand. "Now, I will say just 2 words. It's a name. After I utter that name, you will fear me. Perhaps you will find it EA to talk after that." 2 words. Zhuang Yuzhen laughed. "No matter how many words you doesn't matter to me." After the man went quiet, Jiang Hao whispered, "Chu Zhong." Zhuang Yuzhen froze. How does he know that name? Out of all my disip, why does he utter his name? Chapter 229, Chapter 229, Suppressing a Strong Opponent. Chapter 229, Suppressing a Strong Opponent. Zhuang Yuzhen stood still, staring straight at the person outside. Jiang Hao smiled faintly and took a step back. "Your attitude has indeed changed." "What do you mean?" Zhuang Yuzhen scowled. "How is the corpse realm flower seed cultivated?" Jiang Hao asked. "You're just a late-stage foundation establishment realm cultivator," Zhuang Yuzhen shouted. "Do you really think you can intimidate me? Until next time." Then, Jiang Hao turned around and walked away. "Stop. Stop right there," Zhuang Yuzhen shouted. Jiang Hao ignored him. Next time, he would bring the prisoner a gift. But first, he needed to see what Chu Zhong would do. If the person didn't make any moves, Jiang Hao would do nothing and wait. Killing the clone would do nothing but alert the enemy. Jiang Hao decided to wait for the traitor to appear. After Jiang Hao left, the 5th floor of the Lawless Tower fell silent. Zhuang Yuzhen lowered his head. He wanted to remain calm, but he couldn't. After a few moments, he roared. "Tell him to come and see me, I want to talk to him." However, only silence greeted him back. "Just bring him here. I will tell you how to cultivate the corpse realm flower. Just call that person." His voice finally attracted the attention of some guards. "I want to see him." Zhuang Yuzhen's voice was low. "Who do you want to see?" A woman in the black robe asked him icily. "The one who was just here a moment ago. A late-stage foundation establishment realm cultivator," said Zhuang Yuzhen. "He is not under my jurisdiction. I cannot call him," the woman in the black robe said indifferently. "Then find someone who can," Zhuang Yuzhen shouted angrily. "Show some sincerity, and maybe I'll think about it," the woman said. The bodies of cows, bats, rats, swallows, pigs, and beetles should be buried in the soil every other day for the seeds to absorb the nutrients. It will sprout in 7 days. Baiji looked at the note in disbelief. Regardless of whether what was written on the note was true or false, the progress stunned Baiji. The prisoner had been so stubborn until now. That was what the prisoner said the woman in the black robe. Why did he suddenly say that? Baiji asked in confusion. Today, Jiang Hao went to the lawless tower, and then he talked to the prisoner about something. I saw Jiang Hao leave after that, but the prisoner started screaming and shouting hysterically. Oh! Baiji was surprised. Do you know what he said? She asked. The woman in the black robe shook her head. I was too far away to hear it. Baiji was silent for a while. Zhu Chan, come see me. Zhu Chan, who was guarding the gate, arrived on her flying sword. Elder, greetings. Zhu Chan respectfully greeted her. Take this and try to follow the instructions. Baiji handed the piece of paper to Zhu Chan and told her to leave. If that works, do we send Jiang Hao to meet the prisoner as he requested? Asked the woman in the black robe. Did you promise him anything? Baiji asked. No. The woman in the black robe shook her head. Then there's no need to do anything, Baiji said. And what if I had promised him? Baiji smiled. It wouldn't matter. He is our prisoner. The longer we keep him hanging, the more he will realize who holds the power here. Then, the woman in the black robe hesitated for a moment before asking, should we use something as bait? Baiji chuckled. 2 visits from Jiang Hao did far more than months of interrogation from you. Do you think anything else will work as bait? The woman in the black robe lowered her head. It was true. After dismissing the guard, Baiji wondered what to do next. She didn't care how Jiang Hao had accomplished it. After all, Jiang Hao's role was to be the bait to lure the traitors in. However, she did want to know if he had betrayed the sect in any way. Without evidence, she couldn't take action against him, no matter how suspicious he seemed. The sect master only tasked her with investigating Jiang Hao and not taking action against him. Even if she found evidence, she would have to consult the sect master before taking action. Only Jiang Hao was able to plant the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Baiji didn't know if that was a coincidence or something more. Others might target him without reason, but she couldn't. She was the only Ankh who knew that the sect master had tasked Jiang Hao with planting her flower. Perhaps I can investigate the heavenly fragrance Dao flower to understand why only Jiang Hao is able to plant it. Jiang Hao felt that everything was going according to plan. If Elder Baiji asked him about it, he had an answer. He could tell her that he happened to come across the name of a disciple from the Divine Corpse sect and used it to pique the prisoner's interest. It was a desperate move. As for what would happen next, Jiang Hao wasn't sure. He decided to wait patiently. Jiang Hao felt a sense of accomplishment when recalling how Zhuang Yuzhen had shouted after him. He saw a middle-aged man walking toward him. The man was dressed in a white and blue daoist robe. His eyes were deep and perceptive, and he exuded an extraordinary aura. Jiang Hao stepped aside and respectfully bowed. However, the middle-aged man stopped in his tracks when he reached Jiang Hao. A powerful force pressed down on Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao broke out in a cold sweat. After a while, the pressure disappeared. Jiang Hao suddenly realized that the middle-aged man had somehow appeared on the mountain without him noticing. He quickly moved away. The master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Why would he appear here? Jiang Hao's heart sank. If he had attacked me just now, could I have escaped? Jiang Hao realized that there was no way he could have escaped alive if that had happened. But why would he go to the lawless tower? Jiang Hao thought of Liu Xingchen's warning. He had said that someone from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion was about to advance. Is he still trying to find a vessel to advance? It is no wonder he hates me so much. Jiang Hao returned to his house and breathed a sigh of relief. He decided not to go to the lawless tower for a while. His next step would depend on Chu Zhong's actions. Chapter 230. Chapter 230. The Corpse Realm Flower Sprouts. Chapter 230. The Corpse Realm Flower Sprouts. At noon the next day, Cheng Chou finished with the work in the outer sect spirit herb garden and returned to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He headed to the spirit herb garden to see if anyone needed his help. He needed to accompany the spirit beast and Xiao Li to test Chu Chuan today. They had done this every week, and Chu Chuan lost every time. However, it was admirable that he was always willing to try again with new gusto, no matter how many times he was beaten. In fact, he seemed to look forward to the tests every week. In less than 2 years since joining the sect, he had reached the 3rd stage of the lifeblood refinement realm. Recently, he made a breakthrough into the 4th stage. The speed of his advancement and the talent he displayed were quite different. "The Cliff of Broken Hearts is truly beautiful," Du Yong said with a smile. He had followed Cheng Cho to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He had interacted with disciples from various branches and observed them. This time, it was the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Cheng Cho didn't think much about it. He checked up on the spirit herbs. Cheng Cho hadn't made progress with his cultivation after his advancement. Jiang Hao had also left him alone to explore and learn on his own. "By the way, I walked this way the last time and saw someone's house." "Whose house is that? Are there seniors living in that area?" asked Du Yong. I turned back immediately. I was scared that if a senior was living there, they would offended. "That's senior brother Jiang's house," said Cheng Chu. "He prefers to live in secluded places." "Senior brother Jiang Hao?" Du Yong was surprised. "Yes." Cheng Cho nodded. "Senior brother Jiang seems quite formidable." Du Yong looked around and whispered, "The incident from last time really shocked me." Cheng Cho nodded. He felt the same. He knew the incident Du Yong was referring to. It had to do with Xia Cheng. Had been frightened too. However, no one bothered him after that. In the afternoon, Du Yong bid farewell to Cheng Cho. "So, it's Jiang Hao. He is only in the late stage of the Foundation Establish Me realm. How did he get hold of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower? That kind of divine item shouldn't be touched barehanded. I need to think of something. My main goal isn't to obtain the flower, after all. Should I just find a place to bury the... I need to be careful. After the master's attack, the sect will be too vigilant." He suddenly stopped in his tracks. Late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. What if I turn him into my clone? I can try to establish a good relationship with him first. I can then lead him to the outside of the sect and transform him into a new clone. The only concern is that I will have to use my true body. That is risky. He hesitated, then decided to get on Jiang Hao's good side first. The corpse realm flower hadn't sprouted anywhere in the sect, which meant that his master hadn't revealed anything yet. He still had time. Jiang Hao hadn't left the Cliff of Broken Hearts since the time he encountered the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. He also temporarily stopped visiting the market to sell talismans. As a result, he had quite a few of them. He planned to sell them all together after a while. A month passed by, and Jiang Hao stayed put. Xiao Li also reached the 5th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm. Cheng Cho was now used to her speed and wasn't surprised anymore. "Senior brother Jiang, did you think about visiting Xiao Li's house?" Cheng Cho asked. They were planning to set off for Xiao Li's house today. Xiao Li was also eager to go back. She had hidden many good things and was waiting to take them back to her old parents. Jiang Hao remained silent for a while. "Just tell them that I might need more time." Cheng Cho nodded. He knew that it wasn't easy for Jiang Hao to venture out of the sect. Jiang Hao gave Cheng Cho some spirit stones, pills, and talismans. He didn't need to brief Cheng Cho. This wasn't the first time he had escorted Xiao Li back home. Xiao Li, on the other hand, needed to be reminded and warned of certain things. "Did you store the food in your storage treasure?" Jiang Hao asked. "Yes." "You can't leave anything lying around, especially herbs," Jiang Hao said. "Oh," Xiao Li rearranged something in her storage treasure. "The golden ring." Xiao Li grabbed the ring around her neck and exclaimed, "It's mine. I'll teach you a new method of using it. When you go back, put the golden ring in the courtyard of your house or the hall, and then use this method." Xiao Li nodded. Jiang Hao asked her to demonstrate once. It turned out that Xiao Li, as a member of the Dragon Clan, was an exceptionally fast learner. She could do it on the first try. He hoped she would remember to bury the ring in her courtyard. He left Cheng Cho with the task of making sure she did it. Jiang Hao bid them goodbye. In the afternoon, he finished tending to the spirit herbs and decided to go to the market to sell the talismans. A month had passed, and he hadn't encountered the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion again. As for the Corpse Realm flower seeds, many people kept trying to make them sprout. Jiang Hao had joined the sect relatively late, and his cultivation level wasn't high in the eyes of the others. So, he was never really given a chance to try anything. Many seniors tried to come up with new and innovative ways to try to make the seed germinate, but nothing worked. Jiang Hao felt that this would drag on for a year or two more. Although he wanted to hurry, he didn't really force his way in to try his method. Furthermore, after encountering the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, he was even more reluctant to draw attention to himself. There was a commotion at the edge of the spirit herb garden. Jiang Hao looked in that direction. There were a group of people there. They all looked shocked. The seed is glowing. Why did it suddenly start glowing? I just watered it. Look, the seed has cracked. It's sprouting. Jiang Hao was also surprised. The seed sprouted. It's true. Who did it? More and more people gathered in the area. Jiang Hao also wanted to go and take a look, but he held himself back. It was a pity someone had done it, but it was all right. He was about to advance to another stage and didn't really want to draw attention to himself anyway. The next day, everyone learned that the Corpse Realm flower had sprouted in all 12 branches. This left everyone puzzled. They knew that it wasn't just a coincidence. The Law Enforcement Hall declared that all the seeds had sprouted. One branch had managed to make it sprouted, which had started a chain reaction everywhere. People were shocked and filled with doubt. They wanted to know who had done it first. Chapter 231, Chapter 231, To create a clone. Chapter 231, To create a clone. Jiang Hao was also curious. However, he remained calm and quiet. At noon, he returned to the spirit herb garden after selling the talismans. Han Ming was waiting for him. He was still in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. He wasn't very far from advancing to the late stage. It was quite impressive. Near Brother Han. Your cultivation has become more refined, Liang Hao said with a smile. Han Ming felt proud. I am different from you, senior brother Jiang. I travel around to gain experience and improve myself. You stay in the spirit herb garden all day. Sooner or later, I'll surpass you. Your talent is astonishing. I'm sure you'll surpass me very soon. Han Ming intended to accept the compliments after defeating Jiang Hao and then teaching him a lesson for not cultivating properly. Master sent me here to call you. He wants to meet you, senior brother Jiang. Master wants to see me? Jiang Hao was surprised. I don't know the reason either, but don't delay. Han Ming turned and left. Is this about Xiao Li? Jiang Hao had been planning her trips back home with Cheng Cho. He couldn't think about anything else other than that. A short while later, he arrived in the courtyard of Ku Wu Chang's house. Master, you wanted to see me? Jiang Hao asked as he entered the courtyard. Ku Wu Chang looked solemn. He always looked like that. The Corpse Realm flower has bloomed everywhere, and the highest credit goes to you. Jiang Hao looked bewildered. This book is the main reward. Take it back and study it for 7 days. Ku Wu Chang handed a book to Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao accepted the book. The title read, 9 Extreme Corpse Dissolution Techniques. The Technique of the Divine Corpse Sect. Jiang Hao hesitated. Master, why am I being credited for it? Don't you know? Ku Wu Chang's ever-somber face revealed a hint of surprise. Jiang Hao shook his head. Elder Baiji said that you interrogated the prisoner, and that's how the prisoner gave away this information. Jiang Hao was stunned. Did Zhuang Yuzhen confess? He hadn't received any news about it. He hadn't visited the Lawless Tower in a month. Getting credited wasn't favorable for him right now, especially since he was trying not to draw attention to himself. It would invite only trouble. Is there anything else you need? Asked Ku Wu Chang. Jiang Hao found it difficult to speak up. Ku Wu Chang gave him 5,000 spirit stones as a reward. Jiang Hao then left his master's courtyard. He now had a total of 8,000 spirit stones. After tending to the spirit herbs in the spirit herb garden, he returned to his house and started reading the book. Master. The spirit beast hopped in front of Jiang Hao. Chu Chuan has reached the 4th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm. Do we need to give him something? He has reached the 4th stage already? Jiang Hao was surprised. He then gave some things to the spirit beast to pass on to Chu Chuan. What about Lin Ji? Has he made any progress? He is still at the 1st stage of the lifeblood refinement realm, the spirit beast said. If he continues like this, he will be expelled from the sect. Jiang Hao was aware of that. If a disciple remained in the 1st stage of the lifeblood refinement realm for 5 years without making progress, they would get expelled from the sect. The Heavenly Note sect had no use for disciples who couldn't make progress. The sect didn't tolerate waste. How is his condition now? Jiang Hao asked. It's still the same. He is mocked and occasionally beaten by others. The new outer sect disciples kick and punch him as they please, the spirit beast said with a sigh. He is miserable. Jiang Hao just nodded and didn't ask anything further. He flipped open the 9 Extremes Corpse Dissolution technique and continued reading it. He also activated his clear and pure heart ability to comprehend the technique perfectly. From nightfall until dawn, Jiang Hao read the book. The spirit beast practiced some fighting techniques. As the sun rose, Jiang Hao closed the book. So, that's how it is. He now roughly understood the situation with Zhuang Yuzhen and Chu Zhong. The cultivation method of the 9 Extremes Corpse Dissolution technique was related to corpse separation. Starting from the foundation establishment realm, a disciple could possess someone and turn them into a clone. The clone was called a divine corpse. It required the disciple to take over someone else's body. It could be a living or a dead person. It could even be a spirit beast. The divine corpse could cultivate, but that would take up the main cultivator's time and energy. If the cultivator's original body is not strong enough to advance to the golden core realm, they could perform a corpse fusion and devour the divine corpse to increase their cultivation. After reaching the golden core realm, a disciple could possess 2 divine corpses. The corpse fusion created a corpse heart, which contains the essence of the clone. A disciple in the primordial spirit realm could possess 3 clones or divine corpses. The difference between the original body and the clones was that the clones did not possess a heart. However, others wouldn't know about it because the power that lingers around the heart would keep it beating. The book doesn't mention that the corpse heart can bring about rebirth or how to release the corpse heart. But it seems Chu Zhong has 3 clones since he is in the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. Zhuang Yuzhen has already performed the corpse fusion and is about to advance. The attempt to seize the heavenly fragrance Dao flower is perhaps related to his advancement. He cannot be allowed to succeed. If he does, he will break through to the next stage or realm. Jiang Hao let out a sigh. This is a very powerful cultivation technique. It even allows the main cultivator to be reborn in other clones if the main body dies. If I had a clone, I would hide my main body and let the clones handle things. I wonder if the clones can absorb the bubbles. It would be perfect if that was possible. Unfortunately, the Hong Meng Heart Sutra is not compatible with making clones. The Hong Meng Heart Sutra only worked on the main body and not on clones. If Jiang Hao switched cultivation techniques now, all his progress could be undermined. Although it was useful to have clones, it was inferior to the protection and strength that the Hong Meng Heart Sutra provided him. 7 days later, Jiang Hao returned the book to the cliff master, Ku Wu Chang. His master informed him that according to the sect's rules, he could choose to cultivate the technique but couldn't use other fellow disciples in the sect as clones. If he were discovered doing so, it would be considered a betrayal of the sect. He couldn't use the technique even on a dead disciple of the sect. Anyone who does it must be reported. For now, only you know about this technique. Without my permission, you cannot disclose it to others, Ku Wu Chang solemnly said. Understood, Jiang Hao said politely. Ku Wu Chang asked if he wanted to cultivate it, but Jiang Hao shook his head. The technique was not suitable for him. After that, Jiang Hao returned to the spirit herb garden. In these 7 days, news spread that he was credited with achievement of figuring out the way to make the seed germinate. As he had guessed, the Hall of Merit only announced the outcome and didn't explain how he had done it. People from other branches didn't say anything. Not many people knew him, after all. They were curious about how he had managed to make the seed sprout, but that was classified information. Nobody knew the exact answer. While people from other branches didn't think much about it, the ones from the Cliff of Broken Hearts were bewildered. Some people heard about Jiang Hao for the first time. Others speculated that Jiang Hao must have used some illegal or questionable means to find a way. However, such things were normal in the demonic sect. So, apart from a few disparaging remarks and disdain for his talent and cultivation, there was nothing more to be said. Since the Hall of Merit had announced it, the credit went to Jiang Hao. It was a fact that everyone had to accept. Jiang Hao could only remain silent when faced with curious stares from others. It would be better if he ventured out less. At that moment, he sensed something from the subrings in his pocket. Xiao Li had reached her home. Chapter 232. Chapter 232. The Law Enforcement Hall is different from the rest. Chapter 232. The Law Enforcement Hall is different from the rest. It was either the spirit beast or Xiao Li. Every ring had its own core, so Jiang Hao could determine who it was. The spirit beast didn't understand how to connect to the main ring and open that door. It seems like I need to decide whether to go or not. First, he needed to use Heaven Secret's hidden talisman to see if it worked. Having made that decision, Jiang Hao glanced at his interface. If everything goes smoothly, a few days will be enough for me to advance. He could buy a few seeds, which cost up to 1,000 spirit stones. It could give him some bubbles that might be enough to advance. However, earning spirit stones was difficult, so he didn't want to spend them. Although he could earn spirit stones later, it would take a long time. Also, he had to wait for the right time to transplant the spirit herb. It was too much of a hassle. As for the bubbles, the herbs would either give white or green bubbles. It was difficult to get blue bubbles. Only top-tier herbs produced blue bubbles. There was a chance that his spirit herb might be stolen as well. He didn't have any anti-theft arrays here. Elder Baiji wasn't worried about the heavenly fragrance Dao flower because she needed to lure in the traitors. Hong Yuye wasn't worried because she genuinely didn't care. Jiang Hao never had to set up powerful arrays because of that. It was also very expensive to put up powerful arrays. He was still poor. If he really wanted to collect bubbles, it was better to plant the spirit herbs in the spirit herb garden. However, if he planted it in the spirit herb garden, everyone would find out about it. If anyone thought he was that wealthy despite being only at the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm, it would attract trouble. 2 weeks later, Jiang Hao glanced at his interface again. He only had 1 point lacking. If the heavenly fragrance Dao flower gave him 2 bubbles, then he could begin his advancement. Du Yong had visited a few times, but they only exchanged a few words. It seemed that he wasn't in a hurry. Jiang Hao was patient enough to wait, as he didn't really have any intention of rushing things. However, he did check his surroundings to see if the corpse heart had been buried. Occasionally, he used the daily appraisal on Du Yong to find out more information on the corpse heart. So far, everything was the same. In the next few days, Gui sent him a message saying that she had the location of the dragon and wanted to talk to him about it. Jiang Hao pretended not to see it, fearing that she would ask about his whereabouts. He could only wait. If she asked, he would tell her he was a little busy. Being an undercover agent was not easy. As for Xiao Li, her subring had temporarily malfunctioned. She must have probably taken it away to play with. Fortunately, the next day, it returned to normal. At night, Jiang Hao took out a Heaven Secret's hidden talisman and activated it with a wisp of spiritual energy. The power of the talisman enveloped him. He wasn't sure if it had worked or malfunctioned. After hesitating for a moment, he began pacing back and forth at the entrance of the courtyard. It wasn't until midnight that he realized someone was watching him. He could see 4 pairs of eyes. It seems that it works. Also, some people are keeping an eye on my place. Since it was effective, he had to go to the law enforcement hall to meet Liu Xingchen to see if he could leave the sect for a while. The next day, at the foot of the law enforcement hall, he met Liu Xingchen. "Junior brother Jiang, you came to find me?" Liu Xingchen was surprised. Jiang Hao sensed that Liu Xingchen was closer to advancing to the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm. He was progressing so fast. So far, he hadn't seen anyone surpass Liu Xingchen. The true disciples of the Heavenly Note sect were truly something else. Although Bai Yi was strong, in Jiang Hao's eyes, he wasn't as good as Liu Xingchen. That was because Bai Yi hid in the shadows, while Liu Xingchen walked undaunted. He was unaffected by any threats directed at him. Chapter 233, Chapter 233, Last Glimmer of Light. Chapter 233, Last Glimmer of Light. At night, Jiang Hao checked his surroundings and began cultivating. After more than a year of accumulation, he was finally able to advance. If everything went smoothly, he would be able to reach the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm. He would temporarily surpass Liu Xingchen. However, he needed to be wary of Bai Yi. In the past 2 days, he had assessed his own situation and tested all kinds of powers. There were no issues at all. Unfortunately, Hong Yuye hadn't visited for 7 months. Otherwise, Jiang Hao could have had some security. He emptied his mind of all thoughts and began to advance. His spiritual energy surged within his body. The Hong Meng Heart Sutra circulated and nourished his body. It allowed his spiritual energy to flow through his meridians and ultimately feed his primordial spirit realm. There was some tingling sensation during the breakthrough, but it was a normal phenomenon. After enduring for a moment, Jiang Hao felt as if a great door had blasted open, and a new power began to condense. "I've reached the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm." It had happened sooner than he expected. His primordial spirit realm capabilities had helped him advance easily. Frequently collecting bubbles and possessing primordial spirit divine abilities made his situation far superior to others of the same level. Liu Xingchen's advancement was also fast. Perhaps it was because he devoured the souls of those who possessed him. He might also possess divine abilities. Jiang Hao didn't know much about his abilities, so it was difficult to speculate. He closed his eyes again and planned to use the remaining points to refine his cultivation. The next morning, Jiang Hao activated the reappearance of the hidden spirit ability. Once his cultivation recovered, he stored the stacks on his wrist guards. He also took out the half-moon blade to refine it. He didn't go to the spirit herb garden the entire day. He only got up and headed there near dusk to collect some bubbles and check on the spirit herbs. After returning to his courtyard, he used the Heaven Secret's hidden talisman. It concealed his aura. As expected, there were people spying on him in secret. Judging from their aura, their cultivation shouldn't be that powerful. However, he didn't probe because he didn't want them to sense him. It seemed that they all had treasures to conceal their presence. After a long time, the spies disappeared. After informing the spirit beast that he would go to the spirit herb garden tomorrow, he went into the house. He sensed the aura of Xiao Li's subring and then sat cross-legged on the floor. At this moment, he was still nurturing the half-moon blade. Late at night, he disappeared from the spot. Huangshuo River. Yuxia Village. The moon shone brightly in the sky, and a silver veil descended from above, enveloping the small, peaceful village. Occasionally, a dog's bark could be heard from a distance. Mostly, there were sounds of crickets chirping at night. In a corner of the village, a small courtyard was still illuminated. "Mother, I'm going to sleep. Tomorrow, I'll go to the river to catch fish with father for you," said a girl's voice. "All right, go to sleep. You won't be able to wake up tomorrow if you sleep late. Tell me the story about the sea god," said the girl's voice after a while. "Okay." After a while, the story ended. The girl didn't respond. She must have fallen asleep. At this moment, a figure appeared in the courtyard. His appearance didn't alarm anyone. "Is this the place?" Jiang Hao glanced at the courtyard and turned away. He had no intention of disturbing the people living there. He walked out of the courtyard and saw Cheng Chou. He was digging underneath a tree. Jiang Hao didn't disturb him. After some time, Jiang Hao walked to the farthest part of the mountain and sat cross-legged under a tree. He attracted danger, so he wanted to see if the Heaven Secret's hidden talisman really worked to hide him from other people's eyes. If he failed, someone would probably notice him. There was a chance he could escape their attacks if he moved fast enough. He was fully prepared. He would kill anyone who attacked him. If the enemy was stronger than him, he would stall for time and teleport to his house in the sect. This way, he wouldn't have to involve Xiao Li and the others. Until dawn, Jiang Hao didn't sense any danger. He was safe for now. When he was heading toward the village, he saw an elderly man with a bamboo basket coming out of Xiao Li's house. The old man had a slightly bent back, dark skin, and a face full of wrinkles. Jiang Hao frowned. After a second of thought, he walked toward him. His footsteps attracted the old man's attention. "Young man, are you looking for directions? Are you lost?" asked the old man with concern. Jiang Hao shook his head. "Just passing by. I wanted to take a stroll through this area." "What are you here for?" "I'm going to dig for some bamboo shoots," the old man said. "Please let me accompany you," said Jiang Hao. The old man nodded. The young man looked formidable and was polite. If he were here to attack him, then he wouldn't be able to escape anyway. "All right." Then the two of them walked toward the mountains. "Are you feeling all right?" asked Jiang Hao. "Why do you want to go so far for bamboo shoots? What about your family?" The old man chuckled. "I've been bedridden for half a month. My daughter keeps saying that the bamboo shoots I pick taste good. Today, I feel much better. I thought I would search for some bamboo shoots in the mountains." "It seems you really love your daughter. She's mischievous, but she's really well behaved," said the old man proudly. "What about your other children?" Jiang Hao asked. The old man shook his head helplessly. "Who knows? Maybe they don't want to take care of us anymore, or maybe they are already dead." The old man stopped in front of a bamboo grove and was about to start digging. "I'll do it. I've never done this before, but I've always wanted to try," Jiang Hao said. He smiled and took the hoe from the old man's hands. "But it's inconvenient for you, young man," said the old man. "That's all right. I don't mind. Do you have any regrets in your life?" asked Jiang Hao as he dug the soil. "Of course." The old man laughed. "Who lives without regrets? I feel like I've spent most of my life either regretting or feeling remorse. Life has been tough, hasn't it?" Jiang Hao glanced at the calluses on the old man's hands. The old man leaned against the bamboo and chuckled. "Can't be helped. Everyone lives a life full of struggles. I'm curious about the lives of rich people in the city. I wonder what kind of hoe they use for farming." "Golden ones," Liang Hao said. The old man laughed heartily. "The rich folks don't farm. They make others do it for them." Jiang Hao smiled and then dug out a bamboo shoot. "Please dig out one more. I'm going to save it for my daughter." Jiang Hao took the bamboo basket. "Of course. I have plenty of time." As he watched the old man's vitality seemingly burning its last flame, Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 234, Chapter 234, True Dragon. Chapter 234, True Dragon. "Are these enough?" Jiang Hao asked as he dug out the third bamboo shoot. "That's more than enough. Thank you, young man." With that, Jiang Hao put away his tools, slung the bamboo basket on his back, and walked forward. After walking for a while, the old man was panting. "Let's rest for a while," Jiang Hao said as he stopped by the rocks near a stream. "I'm old now. Can't walk as much." The old man sat down on one of the rocks. Jiang Hao also sat down beside him. The air was rife with the sound of a gurgling stream and birds chirping. "Young man, it seems you rarely venture to the mountains." "Am I right?" said the old man. "That's correct. I didn't have time to experience something like this before." The two of them got up and started walking toward the village. "Have you ever thought of finding out about your children?" Jiang Hao asked. "No." The old man smiled sadly. "I don't think they want us around." "That's fine with me. I still have a daughter. It's enough. Jiang Hao nodded. He heard someone rushing toward them. It was Cheng Cho. He was running in their direction. Presumably, he was looking for the old man. Cheng Cho reached them and heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the old man. The old man seemed somewhat embarrassed. I've troubled you. Cheng Cho shook his head and let him know that it was all right. Then he noticed Jiang Hao beside the old man. Senior brother Jiang. The old man looked shocked. He extended his trembling hand to take the bamboo basket off of Jiang Hao's shoulders. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have made you dig the shoots and carry them. Jiang Hao grabbed the old man's hand gently. It's all right. I don't mind. He then turned to Cheng Cho. Junior brother Cheng, you can go back. We'll catch up. Cheng Cho nodded and went back. I didn't know it was you, elder, the old man said and lowered his head. Jiang Hao smiled. That's all right. And you can continue calling me young man. I prefer that. You are different, said the old man as he glanced at Tian Hao. The rich folks in the city act high and mighty. But you don't put on such an attitude, young man. Jiang Hao laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. Jiang Hao knew better than anyone how cultivators treated ordinary non-cultivators. He didn't feel that way. He understood that regardless of whether you were a cultivator or a non-cultivator, everyone was equal. Besides, he always felt calm around anyone he met. After a long while, Jiang Hao and the old man arrived at Xiao Li's home again. At this time, an old woman leaning on a cane stood at the gate of the courtyard. When Jiang Hao approached, she was about to kneel to pay respects. But before she could do that, a gust of wind lifted her up. What are you doing? Jiang Hao asked. The old woman was hunched over, her eyes squinting from habit because she couldn't see clearly. Her hands had several liver spots. Paying my respects to you, she said. There is no need for that, said Jiang Hao. The old woman was astonished. Upon entering, Jiang Hao searched the ground in the courtyard and retrieved the ring. He entered Xiao Li's house and sat down on a chair. Xiao Li's old parents were at a loss. Just as Jiang Hao was about to speak, the old woman suddenly remembered something and hurried to the kitchen. She brought out some pastries and tea. You should sit down, too, Jiang Hao said. Only then did the two of them sit down, but they seemed uneasy. Xiao Li went to catch fish. She won't be gone for long. She has no trouble catching fish, but she likes to play in the water and take her time, said the old woman. Jiang Hao asked about their names. The old man's name was Miao Shue, and the old woman's name was Miao Xiong. They had lived their entire lives in the village and never traveled far from here. The farthest they had ever been was the nearby town. Their son left home for the city at the age of 19, and their daughter got married at the age of 16 and moved to the city as well. They used to visit once every 3 or 5 years. But it had been several years since they had visited. We found Xiao Li many years ago. She has brought us unimaginable comfort, said Miao Xiong. We wanted to watch her grow up, but it seems that would be impossible. Jiang Hao saw the wall where marks had been drawn to measure Xiao Li's height. She will grow up. Jiang Hao looked at the two elderly people in front of him. She is just a bit slow, but she is strong. The two elders glanced at each other. They looked hesitant. At that moment, Jiang Hao suddenly felt a fluctuation of spiritual energy. It was coming from upstream. Although faint, it was somewhat strange. Where does Xiao Li go to catch fish? He suddenly asked. She often goes upstream. She says the fish there are larger and more delicious, Miaosha said. I'll go take a look. Jiang Hao disappeared. He vanished like dust in the wind. The old couple looked at each other. They were stunned. Upstream at the Huangshuo River, there was a loud boom. Xiao Li emerged from the water with a big fish in her hands. Behind her, the river surged, and a huge creature emerged from the water. It was a black dragon. It looked at Xiao Li with eyes filled with fear and excitement. Why did you steal my fish? Xiao Li glared at the dragon. In front of the dragon, she was nothing but a tiny ant, but she showed no fear at all. A true dragon, said the dragon as it looked at Xiao Li in bewilderment. What kind of true dragon are you? Why does your blood carry such pure energy? I have been observing you in fear for 7 days. You are still weak. Once I devour you, I will be the true dragon. I caught this fish for my parents. If you try to steal it again, I won't let you off so easily, said Xiao Li. The dragon laughed and looked up at the sky. You are truly stupid. Even the heavens are helping me. The dragon's body surged, and it pounced at Xiao Li. This place will be where I transform into a true dragon. It appeared in front of Xiao Li, ready to devour her. Xiao Li showed no signs of fear, but she was suppressed by the overwhelming power and couldn't move at all. Just as the dragon was about to devour Xiao Li, a golden ring appeared in front of her. Clang! A golden light flashed. The dragon crashed onto the ground and was forced to retreat. Who is it? Asked the dragon as it looked around. Before it could speak further, a silver light flashed, and a blade pierced its neck. The dragon roared in pain. It rolled over, and Jiang Hao withdrew his saber. At this moment, he stood in midair, raising the half-moon blade. Purple energy surrounded the place. He used the first form of the heavenly blade, moon-slaying. Chapter 235, Chapter 235, Appearing Mysterious in the Next Gathering. Chapter 235, Appearing Mysterious in the Next Gathering. The sudden attack startled and enraged the dragon. With a furious roar, it was about to attack the humans nearby. It couldn't believe that a mere primordial spirit realm cultivator dared to be so audacious. His cultivation wasn't enough to even destroy its scales. In an instant, its power surged. The dragon roared. It began its counterattack. However, it felt the force of a mountain suppressing its spirit. Jiang Hao had used his divine might ability. The dragon snorted coldly. How dare such a weak human show off his might to a dragon? The dragon's soul trembled and broke free from everything. Moonlight flashed, and a blade slashed down. Boom! The saber collided with the dragon's scales. Crack! To the dragon's astonishment, its scales shattered, and the blade pierced its body. But the blade didn't stop there. With a formidable downward slash, it aimed to cleave the dragon in two. A purple aura surged and destroyed everything. The dragon tasted death. It didn't hesitate. It separated its dragon soul from its body. Jiang Hao raised his blade again, and the mountain suppression technique appeared on his wrist, ready to use. He intended to kill the dragon. However, before the blade could descend, something escaped from the dragon's body. It was the dragon's soul. Jiang Hao changed his direction and slashed at the dragon's soul instead. Clang! A light curtain protected the dragon's soul. Something tried to strike Jiang Hao from behind. It was the dragon trying to restrain his mountain suppression technique. Jiang Hao ignored the attack from behind, gripped his blade tightly, and struck down. Boom! The light curtain shattered, and the mountain suppression fell on the dragon's soul. It was severely injured. The attack from behind reached Jiang Hao, but his 9 heavenly battle armor protected him. With a bang, a powerful force penetrated the armor and struck his back. Fortunately, the impact wasn't that great. Jiang Hao reached out a hand toward the escaping dragon's soul and activated his universe in a palm technique. A purple aura surged and trapped the escaping dragon's soul. Jiang Hao floated midair, and the purple sphere floated on his palm. Inside was the remnant of the dragon's soul. Meanwhile, its body fell heavily on the water's surface. Jiang Hao used the same technique to seal the dragon's body too. Human, what kind of magical technique is that? The remnant of the dragon's soul was a little afraid. Jiang Hao put away his blade. He held the remnant of the dragon's soul in his left hand and the sealed dragon's body in his right. He then activated daily appraisal on the remnant of the dragon's soul. The appraisal results surprised Jiang Hao. He had a feeling that he had heard about this dragon before. He remembered that Gui had been complaining about a dragon. She kept saying the dragon had repeatedly escaped her. Its strength was reduced to 1/10. If it was at its full strength, it would have far surpassed Jiang Hao. It was no wonder it kept running away from Gui. The people in the stone tablet were not ordinary. It seems Xiao Li's presence attracted the dragon. He looked at the remnant of the dragon's soul. Who is chasing after you? What are you talking about? The remnant of the dragon's soul pretended to be confused. Cursed and hunted by an enemy. You've had to use your talent to hide many times, right? Do you now understand what I'm talking about? The dragon's soul looked shocked. It couldn't understand how Jiang Hao knew all this. I don't know who she is. I just accidentally provoked her. She started chasing me. At that time, she was in a secret realm. She must have thought I saw something important, so she pursued me, the dragon's soul said angrily. If it weren't for her, I would have transformed into a true dragon. Is that so? Jiang Hao sighed as he looked at the dragon's soul. Is there anything else you want to say? I can take you to that place and pledge my allegiance to you. I have the potential to transform into a true dragon. I can do many things for you, the dragon's soul said hurriedly. Very well, Jiang Hao said. As the dragon's soul rejoiced, the half-moon blade appeared in Jiang Hao's hand. He swung it towards the dragon's soul. Jiang Hao squeezed the energy sphere, turning everything to dust. I'm sorry. You are far too powerful. I don't think I will be able to control you, so I had to destroy you. With the dragon's soul gone, only the dragon's body remained. According to Gui, the dragon had swallowed something valuable. There must be a precious treasure inside the dragon's body. This was also the reason why Jiang Hao decided to kill the dragon. What it said didn't match what Gui had told him. He decided to believe Gui, not because he trusted her, but because she didn't pose him any danger for now. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Hao strengthened the seal and threw the dragon's body into the river. It sank straight into the riverbed. That should do it. He didn't dare touch anything inside because he didn't know if it would attract unwanted attention. It was better to just give up. Jiang Hao returned to the shore. Xiao Li was still clutching the big fish in her hands. When she saw Jiang Hao approach, she exclaimed, "Senior brother Jiang." Xiao Li was surprised to see that Jiang Hao didn't care about the dragon at all. "Let's go," she said. "All right." Jiang Hao nodded. "I just caught a fish. You can eat it later." Xiao Li smiled. "My mother and father have been asking about you a lot lately. They seemed hopeful that you would come for a visit. Senior brother Cheng said you were on your way." I didn't believe him, but it seems it was true. Jiang Hao nodded. "What about the beast? Why didn't the beast come with you?" Xiao Li looked around. "It's guarding the house," Jiang Hao said. "Oh," she happily led the way ahead with spring in her steps. On the way, Jiang Hao took out the stone tablet and observed it. He realized that Gui was still looking for him. It seemed that the location of the dragon was about to be discovered. Jiang Hao smiled faintly and put away the stone tablet. He didn't plan to inform her of the situation just yet. He wasn't in a hurry. He would casually mention it during their next meeting. That way, he could still maintain his mysterious facade and wouldn't have to reveal anything. In this way, he could firmly establish his position at the gathering. The undercover mission could then proceed smoothly. "Mother, father, I'm back. Look who I brought with me." As soon as they entered the courtyard, Xiao Li shouted toward the house in excitement. She was extremely happy. Jiang Hao sighed as he watched her jump for joy. Xiao Li seemed unaware that something was wrong. She was completely clueless that her frequent visits might soon come to an end. Her parents didn't have much time left. Chapter 236, Chapter 236, A Thin Line Between Life and Death. Chapter 236, A Thin Line Between Life and Death. At noon, Jiang Hao and Cheng Chou helped start the fire. Miao Xiong began cooking. The fish that Xiao Li had caught was the main dish being cooked. Xiao Li talked a lot. Miao Xiong was busy cooking, and she occasionally responded to Xiao Li's constant chatter. Xiao Li didn't mind. She helped with cutting the fish. Once she was finished, she picked up the bowl and went to show it to her mother. Her mother praised her, which made Xiao Li laugh in happiness. The quiet courtyard was lively in Xiao Li's presence. It seemed she was the source of life and vitality in this desolate place. Without Xiao Li, the two old people's lives would have been lonely. Perhaps it would have been too quiet for them to look forward to their deaths. With Xiao Li, it was different. They were still moving toward the end of their lives, but they were at least happy. Jiang Hao saw Miao Shi sitting upright in a chair, watching Xiao Li bustling around. He looked pale and sickly. After a while, the table was filled with various kinds of dishes. Miao Xiong had cooked everything with Cheng Chou and Xiao Li's help. Jiang Hao was offered a chair, and he gratefully accepted it. The others sat down, too, and began to serve the meal. There were fish dishes, cooked bamboo shoots, and chicken. Jiang Hao picked up his chopsticks and took a bite of the fish. He then tasted the chicken and the bamboo shoots. "This is delicious." He smiled. Miao Xiong laughed. Miao Shi also smiled and put some dishes in his bowl. Xiao Li picked up the tender meat, steamed vegetables, and placed them in her parents' bowls. "Eat this." The two elders nodded and smiled. Cheng Chou felt a bit awkward at first. However, when he saw everyone enjoying the meal, he dug in too. Jiang Hao glanced at them occasionally while eating his food. After finishing a bowl of rice, he asked for another one. Xiao Li excitedly ran to get it for him. Xiao Li was happy, and so were the two old people. After the meal, Jiang Hao watched as Xiao Li split firewood for her parents and fed the chickens and ducks. Jiang Hao felt a bit sentimental. In the evening, they had dinner. There were fish and bamboo shoots. Miao Xiong had made pastries too. At night, Miao Shi sat beside Jiang Hao while Miao Xiong put Xiao Li to sleep. "Tell me the story of the sea god," said Xiao Li from inside the room. "Again? Okay. Then tomorrow, tell me the story of the little seashell." Jiang Hao lowered his head. Miao Shi sat straight beside him. "I'm sorry for troubling you." "That's all right," said Jiang Hao. "You should go and stay with Xiao Li as long as you can." Miao Shi nodded and walked inside. Jiang Hao sat in the courtyard and closed his eyes to rest. He sat there until the first ray of sunlight hit his face. He got up and entered the inner room. Xiao Li was sitting next to the two old people. She looked very worried. "Are you feeling unwell?" She helped them up. "I will go find a doctor. I can help brew some medicine too." "It's okay. I'm in perfect health," said Miao Xiong. Miao Shi looked at Xiao Li in concern. His eyes were closing. He hadn't slept a wink all night. He was afraid that if he closed his eyes, he might not open them again. "You don't need to be scared even if you're sick," Xiao Li said. "I'll stay here and take care of you until you get better. I can catch fish, cook, and brew medicine. I can take good care of you. Leave it all to me from now on." "You have grown up," said Miao Xiong with a smile. She whispered to Xiao Li, "There should be eggs today. Go and see how many there are." "Okay." Xiao Li got up excitedly and ran out. "If there are eggs, I'll cook them for you." Jiang Hao sat beside them. Cheng Chou also walked in from outside. He lowered his head sadly when he saw the two old and sickly people. He had accompanied Xiao Li here many times before. He felt sad for the two people. "Can I entrust Xiao Li to you in the future?" Miao Xiong asked Jiang Hao. "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. Miao Xiong had a little time, but Miao Shi was breathing his last breath. "We have a secret," Miao Shi said weakly. "We thought we would take it to our graves, but it seems only right to tell you. We found Xiao Li in the river." "I know," Jiang Hao said softly. "I also know that Xiao Li is a true dragon. It's one of the reasons she grows so slowly. It's normal for her. I promise she will grow up to be an adult." "Thank you." The two elders smiled. Finally, they looked at Cheng Chou as if thanking him for taking care of them all this time. When they closed their eyes, Xiao Li came running with eggs in her hands. A middle-aged man and a woman appeared behind her. When the two old people closed their eyes, they thought they heard someone calling out for them. "Mother! Father!" Soon, they heard Xiao Li's voice in their ears. "What's wrong?" "I found the eggs." "Are you not feeling well?" "I can go and find a doctor." Xiao Li's voice was choked with tears. The eggs in her hands fell to the ground and splattered everywhere. "Please. Mother. I'm so clumsy. I dropped the eggs again. They are all smashed. Please, wake up. Scold me. You promised you would tell me a story." Please don't leave me behind. I promise I won't ask for meat. I'll always listen and obey. Please don't leave me. Xiao Li was sobbing now. Please. I even grew taller than before. Please, wake up. Jiang Hao stood by the side and watched as the two old people breathed their last. He then reached out and held Xiao Li. Chapter 237, Chapter 237, Asking the Demoness for a favor. Chapter 237, Asking the Demoness for a favor. After Xiao Li stopped crying, Jiang Hao left the courtyard. The funeral would be held soon. He couldn't attend it, but he asked Cheng Chou to help out. Jiang Hao left because of Gui. She would soon find this place because of the dragon. She might send someone to investigate secretly. After leaving the courtyard, Jiang Hao made his way to the riverside. When the two old people were dying, Jiang Hao showed them the illusion of their children running to their bedsides. He didn't want them to die with regrets, so he showed them what they wanted to see. Jiang Hao couldn't help but worry about Xiao Li. It was quite a blow to her. It reminded him of his stepmother. Although she had been harsh on him, she had still raised him when he was a child. When he saw the two old people breathing their last, he couldn't help but be reminded of his stepmother. Unfortunately, he hadn't been able to find her or his father. Jiang Hao stood for a long time by the riverside. The wind blew gently and swayed his robes. It carried a familiar, faint fragrance in the air. Jiang Hao suddenly turned. Sure enough, she was there again. She wore a red and white dress. Her long hair swayed in the wind. A belt cinched her slender waist. At this moment, she was looking at the river, so Jiang Hao could only see the side of her face. Hong Yuye. How did she appear here suddenly? Senior. I saw that the village is holding a funeral. Am I right to assume it's somehow connected with you? She turned to look at Jiang Hao. It's related to a junior that I'm looking out for, said Jiang Hao. She had only those two people, and they just passed away. You can't stand to be there. Hong Yuye faced Jiang Hao. Then she walked upstream. It's nothing like that. It just makes me feel sad that life can be too short, he said. How so? Asked Hong Yuye as she glanced at him. I knew that junior sister Xiao Li would have to face this day. She joined the Heavenly Note sect, so her old parents' lives were just improving. They should have lived a long, comfortable life, but, now, they are dead only after a few years since Xiao Li joined the sect. The time was too short for them to be with each other. Do you remember why you picked up a saber? Hong Yuye asked. Yes, said Jiang Hao. The immortal sects usually use the blade. Do you think you look like someone from the demonic sect? Asked Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao lowered his head and remained silent. Hong Yuye stopped speaking and walked quietly along the riverside. Jiang Hao followed her aimlessly. Is my tree going to bear fruit? She asked. Almost. Jiang Hao nodded. Will it be sour or sweet this year? Hong Yuye looked at the setting sun. Sweet. Sweet. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao with a teasing smile. But I want to eat something sour. There should be some sour ones as well, Jiang Hao said. The unripe ones would be sour. Jiang Hao wondered if Hong Yuye would find fault with that too. He hesitated. Senior, can I ask a favor from you? A favor? Hong Yuye asked. Sure. You'll have to give something back as repayment, though. We can just put it on your tab for now, and I can retrieve it next time. Can you please bring the spirit beast here? Asked Jiang Hao. Hong Yuye reached out and grabbed the air. The unconscious spirit beast appeared in her hands, blooded and bruised. This. Hong Yuye threw the beast to Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao was puzzled. He couldn't understand how Hong Yuye did it. Thank you, senior. No need to thank me. You can pay me back next time. Hong Yuye stared at Jiang Hao. Tell me about your progress. It's been over half a year. How's your undercover mission going? I did make some progress, but I still need to sort out some details, said Jiang Hao reluctantly. Hong Yuye gazed at Jiang Hao calmly. Then a surge of power erupted. Bang! Jiang Hao was sent flying and crashed heavily into a boulder. I hope next time you can be just as confident, Hong Yuye said. The pain made Jiang Hao's eyes water. When he looked up, Hong Yuye was gone. With that, Jiang Hao finally heaved a sigh of relief. The problem was that it was difficult to investigate the person who was behind the stone tablet. It was almost impossible to find their location. If he wanted to find them, he needed to provoke the people in the group so they revealed their location willingly. However, uncovering the true culprit behind the stone tablets was almost impossible. Even Dan Yuan might not know who might be behind all that. Jiang Hao looked at the spirit beast in his hand. Cheng Chou wasn't a comforting person. Xiao Li would need all the support she could get. The spirit beast might be of comfort to her during this time. As he threw the beast on the ground, it woke up and wailed. With that, Jiang Hao communicated with the formation in his courtyard, where he had hidden the ring. He disappeared from the spot. He had learned one thing from all this: the Heaven Secret's hidden talisman didn't work on Hong Yuye. Perhaps it would only be possible to conceal himself from her after he somehow lost the Heaven Extinction GU poison. Since there was no way of that happening anytime soon, he needed to focus on his cultivation. At the Heavenly Note sect, Du Yong glanced at Jiang Hao's courtyard. He then turned and left. "We can't proceed with the original plan. It's too dangerous," he said. Initially, he had planned to befriend Jiang Hao and lure him out of the sect. After that, he would make his true body possess him and turn him into a divine corpse. However, he found out that Jiang Hao couldn't leave the sect easily. This sect has so many rules. So many things are forbidden here. But they don't care what happens outside the sect. What truly made him change his mind was the Corpse Realm flower. Under normal circumstances, the Corpse Realm flower couldn't bloom at all. Even he didn't know how to cultivate it, so it was almost impossible for the Heavenly Note sect to figure that out. The only possibility was that something must have happened to his master. What kind of problem would make his master reveal the secret of the Corpse Realm flower? There was only one reason: it had something to do with the corpse heart. Only that could make his master compromise. The Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower is in Jiang Hao's hands, and the credit for the blooming of the Corpse Realm flower also goes to Jiang Hao. Either he has someone supporting him from behind, or he possesses certain abilities. According to my previous speculation, with his age and possession of the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower, it is possible that he might be an illegitimate child of a high-ranking member of the Heavenly Note sect. But now, it seems maybe that's not all. Maybe Jiang Hao is the illegitimate child of the sect master. Now that the Corpse Realm flower has bloomed, it means that my master's corpse heart might be discovered too. Also, I might be targeted. My only advantage is that my strength far surpasses the Foundation establishment realm. My true self must not appear, but we still need to place the corpse heart closer to the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower. What is the safest way to do it? Du Yong furrowed his brow. I can't possess Jiang Hao. Why not let my master possess him? If the corpse heart blooms, my master can directly possess him. As long as I deceive him and lure him out, I can get close to him with my clone. By substituting the corpse heart for his heart, he will naturally nourish the corpse heart because he is around the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower all the time. When the corpse heart is released, I can seize control of it, and then the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower will also be in my hands. If everything went smoothly, this plan was the most efficient way of getting the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower. But he needed to think it through. In any case, he needed to prioritize the safety of his true self. Chapter 238, Chapter 238, A New Gathering. Chapter 238, A New Gathering. In the southern region, somewhere in the Heavenly South Prefecture, a woman in a yellow dress descended from the air. At the edge of the mountain peak, a middle-aged man with white hair looked at the woman and smiled. "Lady Baizhu, you arrived quite early. How is it?" Baizhu asked as she landed on the ground. The middle-aged man handed her a scroll. "I marked the area here. It is a remote place in the Hidden Cloud Prefecture." Taking the scroll, Lady Baizhu carefully examined it and found that there were 3 rivers and countless mountains marked within the enclosed area. There were quite a few towns as well. "The area is huge," she said. "It is indeed quite big," the middle-aged man said. It will take about a month to accurately pinpoint the location. Since you don't plan on going there personally, I assume you are going to put someone else up to the task. The person might not find the exact location on time. Lady Baiju nodded. Then let's settle the payment next time. This time, it's not me who is going to take action, so it won't be on its guard, she said and left on her flying sword. A month from now, I will have the crane deliver the location to you. Don't forget to pay the price then, the middle-aged man said. Of course, Lady Baiju said. Soon, she returned to her temporary residence. After activating the formations around her, she took out the stone tablet. She frowned as she watched the texts on it. Jing hasn't entered the chat in a long time. He only appears in gatherings. Is he busy, or is he deliberately avoiding us? Lady Baiju's eyebrows were knitted tightly. Without any contact, it was difficult to gauge Jing's intent. Those people who deliberately avoided contact were either busy or trying to hide something. It's okay. It's been almost 6 months. The next gathering might be soon. I can ask Jing to help out and find out how capable he is. After that, Lady Baiju entered the stone tablet. Her codename was still Gui. In the Hidden Cloud Prefecture, at the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Jiang Hao appeared in the living room of his house. He then walked out to the courtyard and stopped in front of the immortal peach tree. The cool breeze ruffled his hair. He brewed some tea for himself and sat down on a wooden chair. He poured himself a cup. Jiang Hao had expected Xiao Li's old parents to entrust her care to him. He knew they were at the end of their lives. However, he wouldn't take up her care indefinitely. After she became strong enough to look after herself, he would let her venture on her own path. He planned the same for the spirit beast. If they didn't come back, that would be great. But if they did, it would mean trouble for him. With their talents, they would surpass even his cultivation realm. If they caused trouble, others would come after him because he was their master. His dream of a peaceful life would be disrupted. In short, the more people he got close to, the more troublesome it would be for him. His courtyard was too small to accommodate great demons and true dragons. Jiang Hao lifted the teacup to his lips and took a sip. After that, he wanted to cultivate. He was so close to reaching the late stage of the primordial spirit realm. Once he reached the late stage, his cultivation would be on par with Bai Yi's. Even if he couldn't kill him, Jiang Hao needed to find a way to severely injure him. He couldn't let Bai Yi initiate a challenge using the title of one of the top disciples of the sect. That would complicate matters. He had to do everything in his power to prevent Bai Yi from becoming one of the top 10 disciples. If Bai Yi continued to become stronger, it was hard to say what kind of techniques he would develop. Once they became too difficult to bypass, it would be too bothersome for Jiang Hao. The only way was to suppress him. In his room, Jiang Hao assessed his situation and began to cultivate. Jiang Hao felt miserable looking at the points. They were very low. After reaching the primordial spirit realm, it had proven increasingly difficult to obtain blue bubbles. If he had known that the credit for the corpse realm flowers would fall on his head, he would have cultivated the flowers himself. At least that way, he would have gotten some bubbles. What was more frustrating was that the 12 corpse realm flowers resonated with each other and absorbed the spiritual energy in their vicinity as nourishment. They didn't require tending to. Jiang Hao sighed. It was like the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. When he was away, the spirit beast took care of the flower, and he couldn't obtain bubbles at all. If it weren't for the bubbles, why would Jiang Hao ever choose to work in the spirit herb garden? It reminded him of the days when he was still an outer sect disciple. It had taken him years to accumulate points to advance in his cultivation. After becoming an inner sect disciple, his progress had been much faster. After planting the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, his progress was even quicker. The best way to get bubbles was through mining. That had helped Jiang Hao a lot as well. All these factors were how he had been able to advance from the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm to the primordial spirit realm. However, he was at a stalemate again. It might take hundreds of years to resolve things with the people who hated him. The most pressing matter right now was to steadily improve his cultivation. He hoped he could get one more purple bubble so that he could obtain another divine ability. After returning home, Jiang Hao didn't think about Xiao Li's family anymore. The matter had come to this, and he accepted it. It was time to move on. It wasn't easy for Xiao Li. Jiang Hao hoped the spirit beast could make her feel better. Jiang Hao was powerless in that respect. He had never had bonds like that with anyone, but Xiao Li was different. She had a family who loved her. It was a place where she could feel safe and comfortable. Her two old parents had looked forward to her return every single time. There was delicious food for her at home, someone to tell her stories at night, and someone to dig bamboo shoots just for her. But now, it was all gone. Xiao Li wouldn't have a home to return to anymore. She would have no one to share her stories with. Jiang Hao closed his eyes and calmed his mind. Purple energy surrounded him, and he began to refine his cultivation. After 7 days, Jiang Hao returned to his previous way of life. The Heaven Secret's hidden talisman had also expired, and the effect was gone. Jiang Hao wasn't in a hurry to take on tasks from the Law Enforcement Hall anytime soon. He would pay them back later. There were still 3 months left. The immortal peach tree might not last that long. The peach tree had already bloomed. In less than 3 months, it would bear fruits. By then, Jiang Hao would be able to figure out how many spirit stones he needed for another incarnation. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao sensed the stone tablet vibrating in his pocket. He took it out to see what was happening. Dan Yuan was calling everyone for a gathering. Chapter 239. Chapter 239. Finally, Gui asks the most anticipated question. Chapter 239. Finally, Gui asks the most anticipated question. Jiang Hao entered the public area. The people gathered there were the same ones as before. The 4 of them respectfully greeted each other. Dan Yuan smiled at them all. "We meet again after 6 months," he said. The 4 of them sat cross-legged on the ground. "Do you have any questions about cultivation?" asked Dan Yuan. "I met a fellow cultivator overseas who encountered a bottleneck in their cultivation and couldn't break through," said Liu. "I feel like I might go through the same thing in the future. I might have taken the wrong path. If I create a clone and cultivate on the right path, will I be able to reverse that? It's unlikely." Dan Yuan was deep in thought. Reversing it would put a far greater burden on the body than anticipated. If there are pills that can nourish the body's meridians, it could be worth a try. If not, I don't recommend doing it. The best method is to cultivate an external body that lacks any spiritual intelligence and can only be controlled by the main body's consciousness. After finding the correct cultivation method, you can transfer the cultivation to the main body. Then the main body can start cultivation anew. This way, you will have both security and the ability to go further. Liu nodded. The others didn't have any questions. Then let's talk about the previous mission. Dan Yuan looked at everyone. "Is there any news about the person?" Gui shook her head. Liu and Xing didn't have any information regarding that either. They were too far away to investigate. Gui had inquired but found out that there hadn't been any major battles in the Heavenly Note sect in the recent past. After that, she was busy hunting the dragon. Dan Yuan looked at Jiang Hao. "Friend Jing, you were also in that area. Did you find anything?" Jiang Hao had already prepared the answer in his mind. "I did learn something," he said. "What is it?" asked Dan Yuan. "Senior, have you heard of the Corpse Realm flower?" asked Jiang Hao. "I've heard of it." Dan Yuan nodded and smiled. "I heard it had appeared near the Heavenly Note sect," said Jiang Hao. The others were surprised. Dan Yuan was silent for a while. "I see. Anything else?" "I heard that the flower has bloomed in the Heavenly Note sect," Jiang Hao said. He was taking a gamble. Only a very few people actually knew about it. He might be discovered. He chose his next words more carefully. Gui listened attentively. Dan Yuan smiled. "Friend Jing, you have completed the mission. You can ask for anything you want." Completed. Gui and the others were puzzled. "Jing, you can explain to them," said Dan Yuan with a smile. Jiang Hao felt somewhat helpless. He had to be careful. Recently, I heard that the Heavenly Note sect has been collecting books and records on how to plant and raise the corpse realm flower. So? Gui asked. She might have investigated too early. Otherwise, she would have heard about the flower. The corpse realm flower is a unique flower found in the northern region. Very few people know how to cultivate it. Jing suspects that the Heavenly Note sect might have captured someone from the north, said Liu. Jiang Hao nodded. What is truly worth noting is that the corpse realm flower has bloomed. At this point, he dared not reveal any more details. It was easy to slip. Zhuang Yuzhen only revealed the cultivation method when the corpse heart was threatened. So, the blooming of the corpse realm flower meant that he had surrendered. Jiang Hao's knowledge was limited, and he didn't dare speculate further about it. However, the others understood. The possible capture of the corpse realm flower could be an accident, but figuring out a way to make it bloom would mean that someone from the north was captured and forced to reveal the information. Based on Dan Yuan's information, the person who had gone to investigate the heavenly fragrance Dao flower had been from the north. Dan Yuan smiled and turned to look at Jiang Hao. Friend Jing, have you thought about what information you want? Senior, I was wondering if you knew why the disciples of the Great Thousand God sect were sent to the Hidden Cloud Prefecture. His intention was to find out something for Hong Yuye, but he didn't dare ask openly. That would only bring him trouble. He knew that the stone tablets were from the Great Thousand God sect. While investigating the mastermind behind the stone table, he could also learn about the goals of the Grand Thousand God sect and possibly find the person behind all this. At the same time, he could also report to Hong Yuye about his findings. It couldn't be considered a perfect solution, but it would allow him to establish some Cree 1D111 LY. I will give you an answer at our next gathering, Dan Yuan said. Then he looked at the others. There is no mission this time. Gui looked at Jiang Hao. Jing, I found the location of the dragon. Are you willing to go there? Huangshuo River, Jiang Hao said. You can go there and look up river. Finally, his moment had arrived. He had been waiting for this. With the information about the corpse realm flower and Gui's task, his credibility was slowly being established in the group. He just had to maintain a good image now. If he killed the wrong dragon, the consequences would be unimaginable. What do you mean? Gui asked. She realized that there were 3 rivers marked on the scroll. One of them was the Huangshuo River. Do you mean I should go and search up river? Gui made a note of it. She found it unbelievable. She would check it out and see if Jing was correct. Liu and Xing were also surprised. Jing had first completed Dan Yuan's task, and now he was solving Gui's problem. Gui hesitated for a while. What do you want in return? If your information is correct, then you can tell me what you want, so I can prepare. Recently, I've been interested in curses, Jiang Hao said. He didn't dare ask for any items from these people, as their strength far exceeded his own. Contact with them would only endanger him. So, information and techniques were the most suitable. And his interest in curses wasn't on a sudden whim. It was because he wanted to use it against Bai Yi. If Bai Yi could use a sealing technique to seal his cultivation, Jiang Hao would find a curse to prevent him from advancing too. Chapter 240, Free Form. Chapter 240, Free Form. Curses. Gui wasn't very surprised. What kind of curses are you looking for? What kind? Jiang Hao was puzzled. There are different types of curses. For example, there are luck-related curses, which are comprehensive curses that make everything go wrong. But they are not specific, so you might not have control over them. To succeed, you need to pay a significant price. And there are specific curses that can be either instant or delayed. For example, the curse to make someone die a horrible death might happen instantly, but cursing them with no descendant might take effect slowly over a span of decades. I used the latter type on the dragon. I cursed it with decay so that its body would weaken gradually. Can I have both? Jiang Hao asked. You can, but curses have backlash. I can only provide you with a method to avoid the backlash from 1 TVNE of curse at a time. So, do Von want to avoid? The backlash of comprehensive curses or specific curses? Gui asked. Jiang Hao understood that there was a price to pay when cursing someone. Gui didn't mind teaching him some curses with a method to prevent the backlash. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Hao said, "Let's go with the specific curses." They were simple and convenient, with a higher success rate. For a beginner, this choice was better. However, he wasn't sure about the difficulty of learning a curse. "Okay." Gui nodded. "After confirming everything on the Huangsha River, I'll have the curses ready for our next gathering." Jiang Hao nodded. "Do you have any recommendations for clone techniques? If it's for protection, it's better to choose some orthodox, external clones," said Xing. "The Clear Sky School has a secret technique called freeform, which should be suitable." "Can we get it?" Liu asked. "It will take some time," Xing said. "However, there is another option, the Bright Moon sect's incarnation technique, myriad bodies. As long as it's a sentient being, such as a spirit herb, spirit beast, or spirit plant, it can be used as a clone. I can give you that right now. What do you want in return?" Liu asked. "Help me find someone. She fled overseas. I will tell you the details later," Xing said. "Do you want them alive?" "Doesn't matter." Jiang Hao was quite surprised. The secret techniques of the Clear Sky School and the Bright Moon sect were available to be exchanged. He wondered about Xing's identity. However, he kept a straight face. These individuals were stronger than him and were in cultivation realms that surpassed his own. It was quite difficult to appear capable and mysterious in front of them. After the exchange was confirmed, Liu said, "I heard from some people overseas that the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl is in the southern region. It's possible that someone went there to search for it." "The southern region?" Gui exclaimed. "Then I need to leave quickly. If it really erupts, it will be too late to escape." "Jing, are you leaving too?" Jiang Hao shook his head. He couldn't tell them that the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was with him. It went everywhere he went. It was still surprising that some people had been able to guess its location. He needed to be cautious. The Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl is of great importance. If someone tries to seize it, it's best to inform some bigger sects secretly, so they can handle it, said Dan Yuan. "What will happen if the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl erupts without anyone stopping it?" Xing asked. The question intrigued Jiang Hao as well. He wasn't aware of the specifics of the pearl. If no one stops it, the entire land will turn into a purgatory. According to records, an unparalleled great war occurred in ancient times, during which countless powerful beings perished, and the heavens and earth collapsed. It caused the extinction of many creatures. The reason the war came to a halt was because of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. All people joined forces to seal it, Dan Yuan said. Jiang Hao felt a chill down his spine. The Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was truly terrifying. It was no wonder Dan Yuan had mentioned notifying the bigger sects about it as soon as possible. If they didn't act promptly, it would be even more difficult to contain the situation. For a moment, Jiang Hao hesitated. He wondered if he should return the pearl to its original place in the ruin. However, it was useful to deter others if he had it on himself. It could be used to intimidate anyone who tried to get close. Just the mention of the pearl was enough to deter enemies. But using it to threaten Bai Yi wouldn't have any useful effect. Oh, right. Dan Yuan suddenly remembered something. The mission of the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower is still on. You can gather information on how to plant it, cultivate it, the appearance of the flower, etc. The others nodded. The information was almost impossible to find. They had to rely on their luck. Jiang Hao knew about it but couldn't tell them. If he revealed that he knew about the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower, he would be in trouble. They discussed random things for a long time before the gathering ended. Under the moonlight, Jiang Hao began to take stock of the new information he had learned from the gathering. Xing must be someone extraordinary, muttered Jiang Hao. Liu is obviously somewhere overseas. However, I have no extra information about Gui. The people of the Great Thousand God sect are behind the stone tablets. I'll know more about it at the next gathering. I could learn about curses at that time too. As for the heavenly fate misfortune pearl, soon, trouble might come to the heavenly note sect. Jiang Hao knew about the origin of the heavenly fate misfortune pearl, but he didn't know what exactly had happened in that era. Dan Yuan mentioned an ancient war. Hong Yuye mentioned it too. It seems that the heavenly fate misfortune pearl was sealed in the ruin in the Devil's Den. There is the mine too. Hong Yuye did say it was an ancient battlefield as well. If all of this was true, then the heavenly note sect was truly incredible. Who would even think of establishing a sect here? If they could make good use of it, it would be like receiving divine assistance. However, Jiang Hao didn't remember the heavenly note sect receiving something like that. The heavenly note sect was still dangerous. Maybe not from external forces, but the internal strife was enough to endanger every disciple. There was one more danger added to it, the heavenly fate misfortune pearl. If there were other items like the pearl, one slip would doom the sect. He didn't think too much about it. That was out of his control. Xing wants to find someone, but they are overseas. It's a pity that I can't find them. Otherwise, I could have found out more about Xing. He needed to find out the identities of the people involved. However, his priority right now was to establish his credibility in the group. He had to wait for Gui to find the dragon. He could then prove his credibility. I just need to wait for Gui to visit the Huangsha River. Only the next gathering could answer his burning questions. Until then, he needed to find something to do. Without Cheng Chou in the outer sect spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao needed to keep an eye on it. He also needed to visit Chu Chuan. He could check on his progress this time. In a few more years, the Bright Moon sect will hold a Grand Dao conference. It would be best if Chu Chuan could reach the Foundation Establishment realm at that time and attend the conference. The most important thing for Jiang Hao was to accumulate more points for lifeblood and cultivation. He also needed to pay attention to Du Yong and see if he would bury the corpse heart somewhere. Jiang Hao had yet to visit the Lawless Tower again. However, when he recalled the pavilion master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion appearing again, he didn't want to go anywhere near it. Chapter 241, Chapter 241, Capturing a Spy. Chapter 241, Capturing a Spy. At noon, on the outskirts of the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Chu Chuan practiced the 100 revolutions of the Heavenly Note technique. Currently, he was practicing the first set of movements. He always practiced it diligently. He never slacked off. Chu Chuan's goal was to be able to spar better with the Spirit Beast and Xiao Li. In these past 2 years, he didn't know how he had managed to get through. In any case, they had guided him well. When he finished his practice, he suddenly noticed someone standing behind him. It was Jiang Hao. Senior brother Jiang? Chu Chuan looked surprised. He had hardly seen Jiang Hao in the past 2 years. The Beast and junior sister Xiao Li are out of the sect. Today, I've come to assess your progress, Jiang Hao said, picking up a tree branch from the ground. I see. That's why I didn't see the spirit beast for so many days, said Chu Chuan. Chu Chuan, although still a young boy, had grown quite a bit in these 2 years. Combined with his cultivation at the 4th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm, he no longer resembled the weak and frail child he had accompanied to the sect. Jiang Hao felt a bit sentimental, looking at the child in front of him. Senior brother Jiang, should I start? Chu Chuan took a deep breath and prepared to make a move. Sure. Jiang Hao nodded. Chu Chuan quickly stepped forward. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Jiang Hao and throwing a punch. Jiang Hao didn't dodge but simply swung the tree branch. A crisp sound rang out as the branch hit Chu Chuan's fist, forcing it to change direction. Chu Chuan followed up with a kick. The branch blocked that too. Chu Chuan's foot was pushed back. He tried again. He was faster and more agile than before. Jiang Hao stood firm, using only the tree branch to defend himself. He didn't even turn his head, regardless of the continuous attacks. Chu Chuan became more and more frenzied. There was a surge in his strength. When his kicks and punches had no effect, he used different techniques to launch an attack. After more than 2 years of practice, he was finally getting better. He felt exhilarated. Jiang Hao began to counterattack. The branch struck Chu Chuan's chest, forcing him to step back. Instability in your aura, inadequate execution of the technique, Jiang Hao said. Then, he countered with a sweeping leg attack, causing Chu Chuan to lose his balance. Rigid movements, incorrect posture, failure to generate force from the waist. At this point, Chu Chuan used magical attacks. Jiang Hao broke them all. You're decent at using magical techniques, but not skilled enough. Jiang Hao attacked Chu Chuan from all directions. Chu Chuan was curled up on the ground. Finally, Jiang Hao threw down the tree branch. Overall, your progress has been too fast, so the other aspects couldn't keep up. The foundation of your cultivation isn't refined enough. Chu Chuan sat up on the ground and grimaced in pain. Senior brother Jiang, am I at least considered a bit impressive? It depends on who you're comparing yourself to, Jiang Hao said calmly. Compared to ordinary outer sect disciples, you're indeed impressive. Compared to your childhood sweetheart, you're slightly inferior. Just, slightly inferior? Chu Chuan was pleasantly surprised. Jiang Hao smiled. Even that slight difference will be impossible to catch up to in a lifetime. What cultivation level is Chu Jie at now? Chu Chuan looked at Jiang Hao with anticipation. If she is focused on cultivation, she might be at the 6th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm. However, if she is focusing on refining her cultivation more, then the 5th stage. Chu Chuan was at the 4th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm. Zhao Qingxue, with exceptional talent, was also in the 4th stage. It wasn't surprising for Chu Jie to be at the 5th stage. The Bright Moon sect was not weaker than the Clear Sky School. If Chu Chuan could advance one step ahead, it wouldn't be a waste. Right now, the most important thing was to refine the cultivation and strengthen the foundation. In the early stages, it wasn't crucial to advance quickly to another stage. It was more important to refine and strengthen one's cultivation. Chu Chuan was of the right temperament to do this. Impressive, Chu Chuan looked delighted. Senior brother Jiang, when can I see Chu Jie? In a few years. If you reach the foundation establishment realm by then, it would be best, said Jiang Hao. Will you come with me at that time, senior brother Jiang? Jiang Hao shook his head. In theory, it would be impossible for him to go with Chu Chuan. But with the 9 rings of heaven and earth and the Heaven Secret's hidden talisman, he could perhaps have a 3-day window to make a trip there. However, he couldn't leave the sect. The probability of him being targeted was high. It would be dangerous. After checking Chu Chuan's progress, Jiang Hao headed to the outer sect's spirit herb garden. There were some changes in representatives from the other branches, but Xia Cheng was still there. There were also more people in the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. When Jiang Hao arrived, some people walked over to greet him. However, they acted strangely in front of him. Jiang Hao was also unsure why they were acting like that. Was it because they were dissatisfied with Xia Cheng's change of attitude toward him, or because he was credited with the achievement of making the corpse realm flowers bloom? Regardless, they weren't making a move against him, so Jiang Hao brushed it off. He headed straight for the Lawless Tower. He wanted to see Zhuang Yuzhen and perhaps get some more information from him. It wasn't suitable to stay away for too long since Elder Baiji was keeping an eye on the case. On the way, he saw Liu Xingchen. I was just looking for you, junior brother Jiang, said Liu Xingchen. What a coincidence that I ran into you here. Senior brother Liu, greetings. Why were you looking for me? Whenever Liu Xingchen came to find him, there was usually something going on. Do you remember the incident because of which your resources were stripped? The 5-year deadline is coming to an end, said Liu Xingchen. Oh, so, can I receive them now? 40 spirit stones were not a small quantity. That was intended, but someone from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion appeared, and they had a very violent aura around them, said Liu Xingchen helplessly. The Law Enforcement Hall decided to extend your punishment for 3 more years. Jiang Hao fell silent. His resources for 3 more years would be confiscated again. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do about that. It seems that you don't really care that much about it, said Liu Xingchen. Junior brother Jiang, I suggest you show a little more concern about it and complain to your cliff master. If you even pretend to be miffed about it, they'll be more at ease. Jiang Hao wouldn't really go to complain to his master. He wasn't a true disciple. If he complained too much, his master might start disliking him. It wasn't worth it. His master had given him 5,000 spirit stones last time as a reward, after all. It was best to just accept his fate and not attract the attention of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. The reason his resources got confiscated for 3 more years must have been because he had seen the pavilion master near the Lawless Tower last time. Oh, there's another interesting matter, Liu Xingchen said with a smile. While you were away, someone went to your house and kept an eye on you. The people of the Law Enforcement Hall happened to see him. He turned out to be a spy from the Sunset Immortal sect. He insisted that he was there to meet you. So, you are even more suspicious now. You may need to cooperate with our investigation in the near future. Of course, it won't affect your tasks outside. If you take a mission and you fail, you still have to pay compensation. What if they come looking for me when I happen to be away from the sect? Jiang Hao asked. If the person can't be found, the problem becomes more serious. You might be made to pay a large amount as compensation, said Liu Xingchen. Jiang Hao was speechless. Chapter 242. Chapter 242. Didn't you know that the Heavenly Note sect was a demonic sect? Chapter 242. Didn't you know that the Heavenly Note sect was a demonic sect? The Law Enforcement Hall seemed to constantly remind Jiang Hao that he belonged to the demonic sect. They could just command him to do what they wanted him to do, but they gave him a choice. They allowed him to pay compensation. Jiang Hao had no intention of taking on another mission. Getting involved with a spy was unexpected. With a sigh, he stopped thinking about it. He would stick to his previous plan and continue stalling. He now had 8,000 spirit stones. He could go ahead and prepare for another incarnation of the immortal peach tree. This time, he didn't want to delay because he only needed 1 purple bubble to obtain a new divine power. Obtaining a new divine ability would give him an edge. He wasn't sure what kind of divine ability he would get this time. I heard something else these past few days, Liu Xingchen said unexpectedly. I heard that Bai Yi has challenged Manlong. Really? Jiang Hao was surprised. He challenged one of the top 10 disciples? Yes. Liu Xingchen nodded. It happened a couple of days ago, and it won't be long before it's announced publicly. His chance of success is not high, so I don't know why he's in such a hurry. If he reaches the late stage of the primordial spirit realm, his chance of success will be higher. He may not be able to hold on to the position even in the peak stage of the primordial spirit realm, let alone the late stage. It seems he has some plans for this year. The news surprised Jiang Hao. He didn't expect Bai Yi to start pursuing a position among the top 10 this soon. He thought Bai Yi was like him, waiting to improve his cultivation before trying to be one of the top 10 disciples. Bai Yi was trying to act too fast without any preparations. When? Jiang Hao asked. To fight one of the top 10 disciples, the challenge must be issued a year in advance. So, they will be fighting next year. The location is chosen by the challenger, but it will be announced 1 day before the fight. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. He still had 1 year left. In 1 year, he could learn some curses, even if he wasn't able to catch up to Bai Yi in his cultivation. He didn't want Bai Yi to become one of the top 10 disciples. Since Bai Yi chooses the location, is it possible that he can set up formations there? Jiang Hao asked. No. Liu Xingchen shook his head. Normal formations and restrictions cannot be set up at the venue unless they are set up secretly without anyone discovering them. Jiang Hao nodded. After talking for a while, Liu Xingchen walked toward the mining area. Since I have met you already and relayed the information to you, I'll get going. Jiang Hao bid him farewell. However, he wondered what Liu Xingchen was planning next. Was he going to the mines to find another remnant soul and let it possess him? Liu Xingchen was very close to reaching the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm. He wanted to know if the 2 creatures who possessed him had decided to join forces against him. However, he was going to meet Zhuang Yuzhen, so he needed to save the daily appraisal ability for that. A short while later, Jiang Hao reached the 5th floor of the Lawless Tower. He stood in front of the prisoner's cage. Jiang Hao tapped on the wooden bars. "Are you awake?" he asked. Zhuang Yuzhen slowly raised his head. His eyes brightened when he saw Jiang Hao. It seemed like he had been waiting for him for a long time. "It seems like you really wanted to see me," Jiang Hao said calmly. "Didn't your sect inform you that I wanted to see you?" Zhuang Yuzhen asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. No. No one had even informed him about that. Zhuang Yuzhen had been deceived. That was normal in a demonic sect. Even the members of the sect were often deceived, let alone prisoners. "Don't tell me this is a demonic sect." Huh? Jiang Hao was surprised. "Didn't you know this was a demonic sect when you came here, senior?" Zhuang Yuzhen was momentarily stunned. Then he sighed. "When I came here, I only knew that this was a substandard and inferior sect." Substandard? Jiang Hao didn't agree with that. Although the Heavenly Note sect wasn't very big, it was still a first-class sect. At least in the southern region, it was one of the most powerful sects out there. It was on par with the Black Heaven sect and the Sunset Immortal sect, which were both first-class sects. Azure Mountain was considered a decent sect. However, the Heavenly Note sect had attacked it and won. As for the Clear Sky School and the Bright Moon sect, they were true immortal sects. They were top-notch sects that were unparalleled in the whole realm. Even if several sects joined forces, it wouldn't be enough to challenge them. "Senior, you should be more cautious," Jiang Hao said. "Attacking a sect without knowing everything about it could get one trapped like Zhuang Yuzhen." "Cautious?" Zhuang Yuzhen sneered. "Would you be cautious to pick a flower from the neighborhood?" Jiang Hao was speechless. His answer would be affirmative. He was always super cautious when doing anything. "Senior, how did you know that the heavenly fragrance Dao flower was in the southern region? You are from the north, right?" In fact, he knew it was all related to Dan Yuan. Some people in the southern region already knew about the heavenly fragrance Dao flower being in the Heavenly Note sect. It wasn't a big secret. Jiang Hao wanted to find Dan Yuan's real identity. If he found him in person, he could snatch his stone tablet and figure out who was behind all this. If it weren't for the fear of being detected by the mastermind behind the stone tablets, Jiang Hao would have already found out the real identities of Dan Yuan and the others at the gathering. However, he didn't want to be reckless. Besides, it was highly likely that he wouldn't be able to use his divine ability with a shred of his consciousness in the stone tablet. It wasn't that difficult. "I just had to ask someone." "How did you contact this person?" Jiang Hao asked. "First, tell me why the heavenly fragrance Dao flower is in your hands," Zhuang Yuzhen said. "I don't know. You should ask the higher-ups who are aware of this matter." "I'm just following orders," said Jiang Hao. That was partly a lie. He knew that the heavenly fragrance Dao flower was handed to him so that spies could be lured in. It was a bait. "What else do you know?" Zhuang Yuzhen stared at Jiang Hao. "What do you mean?" Jiang Hao asked in confusion. "You know what I'm talking about," Zhuang Yuzhen said. "Can you tell me what will happen after the corpse realm flower matures?" Jiang Hao asked. "Kid, you're only in the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. You should know that I could kill you with a single breath if I were out of here. Tell me what else you know." Zhuang Yuzhen seemed unable to restrain the anger in his voice. "It seems like you don't really want to talk with me," Jiang Hao said. "I have had enough of your nonsense. Tell me how much you actually know and where you learned about that name." Jiang Hao remained calm and took a step forward. He beckoned the prisoner closer. "Come closer, and I'll tell you 2 more words. After I finish, you will be calm and willing to talk more." Chapter 243. Chapter 243. Lin Ji is about to be expelled from the sect. Chapter 243. Lin Ji is about to be expelled from the sect. "Come back here. Stop right there." Zhuang Yuzhen struggled frantically against the prison bars. After uttering the mysterious words, Jiang Hao watched him flip entirely. He just turned around and left. He didn't plan on talking with the prisoner for too long. Talking too much usually ruined the suspense. The prospect of something unknown drove people crazy. It made them curious and restless. Only after finding out more could the mind be calm again. Zhuang Yuzhen was feeling that now. He didn't know how much Jiang Hao knew, and the doubt was making him frantic. Bring him to me. I will tell him everything. At this moment, the black-robed woman approached the prisoner. Be a little more sincere, why don't you? I won't talk if I don't see him. Let him come here, and I'll tell him everything. The black-robed woman hesitated. Well, I'm not in a hurry. You bitch. I'll remember this. Zhuang Yuzhen struggled. Smack. Suddenly, a whip struck his face. He was momentarily stunned. Then the whip struck again. Smack. Smack. Is that all you have? If you dare, just kill me, you bitch. While Zhuang Yuzhen cursed, the black-robed woman whipped him continuously. After a while, she stopped whipping him and left. Zhuang Yuzhen's mouth was swollen. Jiang Hao felt that he couldn't go back to the lawless tower anymore. The words he had uttered were corpse heart. That had been his last resort. If he went to meet the prisoner again, he would have no bargaining chip left. The prisoner would suspect that Jiang Hao had no other information against him. The best option was to leave him in suspense for now. Zhuang Yuzhen had been astonished to learn that the Heavenly Note sect was a demonic sect. It was as though he thought he belonged to an immortal sect. The Divine Corpse sect wasn't an immortal sect in any shape or form. Clones were extremely important to them. Abiding by the rules of the immortal sect would hamper them greatly. If that were the case, then the Divine Corpse sect must be divided into two groups, one conservative and the other corrupt. I don't think that's possible. In the cultivation world, many people were murdered in their own sects by their own people, irrespective of whether they were from the demonic or immortal sect. The disciples of the Divine Corpse sect weren't very rigid about their rules. They even used any person, living or dead, as a divine corpse. However, if they left the ordinary cultivators alone and didn't tangle with other immortal sects, they could be considered part of the immortal sect. The reason why the Heavenly Note sect was considered a demonic sect was because they didn't care about ordinary cultivators. They weren't above harming ordinary people for their own gain. They killed and robbed them. They treated cultivators the same way, too. Secondly, they would go to any length to become stronger or get what they wanted. They would refine tools, make talismans, create pills, and dupe others, especially if they were poor. The wealthy usually didn't indulge in petty crimes, but there were still cases of that happening. They even abducted ordinary non-cultivators every few years. That was how ordinary people ended up as workers in the spirit herb gardens. Back in his own courtyard, Jiang Hao began to study the Nameless Manual. Recently, he had reached a bottleneck. He wanted to progress to a higher level as soon as possible. In the following months, he needed to earn spirit stones and find out where Bai Yi was staying. He wanted to be prepared so that he could curse Bai Yi when the time came. It was unexpected that Bai Yi would challenge Manlong so soon. It was no wonder Jiang Hao hadn't suffered any attacks from Bai Yi recently. He was busy preparing for the fight with Manlong. Jiang Hao put down the Nameless Manual and finally felt that he had reached a new level of knowledge. His perception became even more sharp, and he noticed subtle changes in the world around him. He could see things more clearly and sense the flow of spiritual energy. He could even feel his primordial spirit through his breath. The more he studied it, the more he understood how Hong Yuye could see through him so easily. It felt like he was stripped naked. When he realized this, he studied the manual even more. Suddenly, he thought of a possibility. If I fully master the Nameless Manual, will I be able to conceal even the heavenly secrets? Suddenly, he thought of a possibility. If I fully master the Nameless Manual, will I be able to conceal even the heavenly secrets? Currently, he could perceive and conceal his aura, spirit, and magical abilities. He could only confirm it by learning everything in the Nameless Manual and testing it in front of Hong Yuye. Speaking of which, it's been half a month. How is it that the Spirit Beast and the others haven't returned yet? Without the Spirit Beast and the others, Many things had to be put on hold, especially Chu Chuan's weekly test. He had no choice but to wait. At the White Moon Lake, Zhao Qingxue rushed in. She approached Ju Chan's senior sister Ju. "Can I ask you something?" she said nervously. "What is it?" Ju Chan said. "Is there a rule in the sect that expels an outer sect disciple if they remain at the first stage of the lifeblood refinement realm for more than 3 years? There is such a rule, but very few people get expelled. There aren't many people who remain at the first stage for so long. None of the 12 branches had people that slow. Even if someone's talent was very poor, they still managed to advance to the second stage within 3 years. Lin Ji is still at the first stage." Ju Chan was surprised. "That's unlikely, but if he is still in the first stage, then maybe he isn't suitable for cultivation. Is there a way to help him stay in the sect?" "I don't know about that. I don't even know who oversees the matter," Ju Chan said sadly. "I'll ask Elder Qian Shu." "Don't worry." After a while, Ju Chan and Zhao Qingxue arrived at the courtyard of Elder Qian Shu. "Still at the first stage of the lifeblood refinement realm after 3 years?" said Elder Qian Shu in surprise. "Wouldn't it be just plain torture on the disciple if he is allowed to stay when he isn't suitable for cultivation?" Zhao Qingxue lowered her head sadly. "Well, just inform the outer sect of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. We can let him stay for another year. If he fails to advance to the second stage after a year, then he will have to meet the Cliff Master of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. If the Master agrees to let him stay, the other branches will have no problem with it." "Should I inform them to let him stay for another year then?" asked Ju Chan. Elder Qian Shu nodded. "Remember to leave 1 or 2 spirit stones as a gift for doing so." "I see. Thank you, Elder Qian Shu." She bid him farewell and left with Zhao Qingxue. Elder Qian Shu just shook his head and didn't think about it further. "Thank you so much, Senior Sister Ju," said Zhao Qingxue gratefully. "That's all right. Don't worry. I'll talk to the people in the outer sect. It's almost August, and there's still half a year left. Hopefully, Linji can do it this time," said Ju Chan. "If he fails to advance to the second stage for another year, I won't be able to help him anymore. The Cliff Master is the head of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. We can't even get an audience with him, let alone ask him for help." Zhao Qingxue nodded. Everything depended on Lin Ji after this. Chapter 244. Chapter 244. How do you repay kindness with enmity? Chapter 244. How do you repay kindness with enmity? At the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Jiang Hao stayed indoors. Since his return from the Lawless Tower, he had been busy with his own affairs. During this time, he tried to comprehend the 4th form of the Heavenly Blade, but he couldn't understand it. It seemed that his spiritual energy was not strong enough. He had no choice but to wait. Perhaps it would be different if he reached the late stage of the primordial spirit realm. The 7 forms of the Heavenly Blade were extremely powerful. The requirements for the new techniques were even more difficult. The 3 forms of the Heavenly Blade were barely enough for his needs, and he still hadn't mastered any spells. The Hongmeng Heart Sutra had even higher requirements. After mastering the universe in a palm technique, he needed to advance to another stage to learn another technique. For now, he could only rely on his divine abilities. Another half a month had passed, and it was already mid-August. Xiao Li and the others had been away for 2 months. Jiang Hao wondered why they hadn't returned yet. He wasn't worried about their safety, but he felt that Xiao Li might not want to come back to the sect after her parents passed away. After all, the house was her last reminder of her parents. If she left, it would be left empty. During this period, he visited Chu Chuan twice and Lin Ji once. Chu Chuan was doing okay. He had made some more improvements since the last time. He had chosen to give up on certain things to focus on his cultivation. He wanted to reach the Foundation Establishment realm and join the Bright Moon sect. Jiang Hao had told him that even if he reached the Foundation Establishment realm, he still wouldn't be able to compete with Chu Jie. Chu Chuan wasn't concerned. After he reached the Foundation Establishment realm, Chu Jie wouldn't worry too much about him. He wanted to reassure her that he was fine. However, He was still undecided about whether he wanted to be a disciple of a demonic sect. Jiang Hao didn't say much on the matter. That was Chu Chuan's choice, so Jiang Hao didn't want to interfere. Compared to Chu Chuan, Lin Ji was far behind. He was truly, as the beast had described, always getting beaten. He had already reached the third stage of the star-moon lifeblood refining realm and absorbed the power of the sun, moon, and stars at a faster rate. However, due to the influence of the star and moon pearl, he couldn't advance to the foundation establishment realm. He might stay in the lifeblood refinement realm for many years yet. It was difficult for Lin Ji. Jiang Hao asked him if he still wanted to stay in a demonic sect. Lin Ji's answer was always affirmative. Jiang Hao gave him some guidance in his cultivation and let him be. He would eventually have a bright future if he endured. Jiang Hao didn't tell Lin Ji about it. Instead, he sent the beast to keep encouraging him. The beast was looking over his progress, after all. It wasn't easy to endure something like that. To remain in the lifeblood refinement realm for 5 or 10 years without losing hope was an ordeal. In the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao found some bubbles. There were quite a few white and green bubbles, but unfortunately, there wasn't a single blue one. Jiang Hao saw a young girl running toward him in a panic. "Senior, something has happened." The girl, around 16 or 17 years old, seemed relatively new here. Jiang Hao couldn't remember seeing her in the garden before. "What happened?" he asked Carmel V. "A spirit herb is withering," said the girl, and she pointed in a direction. "Over there." Jiang Hao frowned and quickly went to investigate. At the spirit field, a young boy looked at him fearfully. He was kneeling on the ground. I didn't do anything. It was like this when I reached here." "It's fine. Step aside," Jiang Hao said. If it was the boy's fault, he would be punished. If not, there was no need to make things difficult for him. The boy was surprised to see Jiang Hao so calm. He thought he would be punished. He had transferred from another spirit herb garden recently. He had witnessed one of his fellow villagers being beaten to death. Jiang Hao observed the spirit herb in front of him. It was an antidote, and it was currently wilting. After a while, he confirmed that it was affected by an external aura. He checked the soil and found something strange. Jiang Hao looked around and saw the corpse realm flower nearby. The spirit herb was affected by the corpse realm flower. "You too, go about your business and don't come near here for now," Jiang Hao said to the young boy and girl. The young boy couldn't believe it. He wasn't even scolded or interrogated. Using his spiritual energy, Jiang Hao drew a line on the ground to isolate the aura from spreading through the soil. That would prevent the corpse realm flower from affecting that part of the spirit field for a while. He approached the corpse realm flower and appraised it. Jiang Hao looked at the slightly darkened leaves. He felt helpless. So, it needs to be transplanted to a place without other plants, a barren land. Jiang Hao observed the spirit herb garden and found no such place. Perhaps it needed to be planted outside the garden. He couldn't make a decision on his own. He needed to find a senior or ask the cliff master. The other spirit herb gardens might be having similar issues. Perhaps I can take this opportunity to enter the 100 Bones forest. Jiang Hao didn't intend to help others transplant the corpse realm flower. Instead, he wanted to go to the law enforcement hall and see if there were any tasks related to the 100 Bones forest. He wanted to find Bai Yi and obtain something related to him. He needed to lay the foundation for the curse. He went to find his master. Transplant it to a safer place? Ku Wu Chang thought about it. Why not transplant it outside Miao Tinglian's residence for now? She doesn't have any missions, and she knows about spirit herbs. She can keep an eye on it. As for how to transplant it, you can figure it out on your own. Jiang Hao was the one who was able to grow the corpse realm flower, so it was okay to trust him. "All right. I'll find senior sister Miao Tinglian then," said Jiang Hao. In the courtyard, there were 2 true disciples who seemed to be teaching some techniques. Jiang Hao had never studied here before, and his master had only taught him once. That was the difference between inner sect disciples and true disciples. "Junior brother Jiang, I thought I treated you well. Why do you want to harm me? Miao Tinglian expressed her dissatisfaction. Mu Qi was also curious. Tinglian's residence doesn't have a barren area, but mine does. Jiang Hao kept his head down and didn't say anything. Many people in the sect were aware of the relationship between senior brother Mu Qi and senior sister Miao Tinglian. The Cliff Master also assumed that senior sister Miao Tinglian lived with senior brother Mu Qi. These two were probably the only ones in the sect who treated him well, and he had no intention of making things difficult for them, but the Cliff Master had given his instructions. How do we transplant it anyway? Asked Miao Tinglian. I observed the corpse realm flower. It withers very easily. Beast blood, Jiang Hao said. If beast blood is used to nourish it while transplanting, it won't wither. Really? Miao Tinglian was surprised. I've never heard of that before. Chapter 245. Chapter 245. Are you interested in a 20-year-old junior? Chapter 245. Are you interested in a 20-year-old junior? It really works. That afternoon, Miao Tinglian proceeded with the transplantation. Without beast blood, there were signs of withering, but with the use of beast blood, it could be transplanted successfully. This is the first time I've seen this kind of spirit herb. At this moment, they were in a mountain pit, which was where Mu Qi often experimented with his techniques. It was barren and close by. At the same time, it was secluded enough that their residence couldn't be seen. Now that everything is settled, I won't disturb you any longer, seniors, said Jiang Hao politely. He turned to leave. Wait. Miao Tinglian pointed to the corpse realm flower. Other spirit herb. Gardens will definitely face the same problem. They will come and ask about. 3. Jiang Hao didn't hesitate. Now that you are the guardian of the corpse realm flower, they will definitely come to ask you, senior sister Miao. The information is yours to share. If you are willing, you can tell them. If not, it's up to you. He didn't intend to get involved in such matters. It would be better if he didn't attract other people's attention. Apart from Bai Yi, if he kept his head down, he wouldn't encounter any more problems. The Foundation Establishment realm disciples were easy to handle. Only true disciples like Bai Yi were difficult to get along with. Dealing with more aggressive disciples was very challenging. Taking action would expose him. However, if he didn't take action, the perpetrator would keep becoming unreasonable. Jiang Hao had disciples in the sect, but no one had found evidence against him. However, they might use the heavenly essence soul modeling mirror if it happened again. Once discovered, he would be sent to the lawless tower. People would get very suspicious if they discovered his cultivation realm. With exceptional talent, the blessings of the heavens and earth, the inheritance of great power, and the guidance of a knowledgeable mentor, Han Ming, at 23 years old, was only in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. As a demonic sect, would the Heavenly Note sect be willing to nurture Jiang Hao if they thought he was talented? Jiang Hao was not naive. He didn't want to entrust his life and death to others. Some might take the risk and reveal themselves, but Jiang Hao was always cautious. It was one of the reasons Jiang Hao tried hard to escape the clutches of Hong Yuye. He wanted to be in control of his own life. For that, he needed to get stronger. Hiding his abilities was the best step for now. In that case, I will make the decision myself, Miao Tinglian said. Jiang Hao nodded and prepared to leave. Oh, there's one more thing. Miao Tinglian smiled as she looked at Jiang Hao's puzzled face. A junior has recently arrived at the Cliff of Broken Hearts. She is 20 years old and in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Are you interested? You're 24. You two would make a good match. I've seen her. She's very beautiful. Jiang Hao was speechless. Even Mu Qi was momentarily stunned. He pulled him away. Junior brother Jiang, you can go about your own business now. Please ignore her words. Don't mind her. Jiang Hao nodded and bid them farewell. Miao Tinglian was relentless when it came to setting him up with someone. A 20-year-old in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm was indeed impressive. However, how could she be interested in someone like Jiang Hao who relied on opportunities to accumulate his cultivation? Jiang Hao had no intention of finding a partner. In the following 7 days, Jiang Hao noticed that Du Yong was looking for him more often. He visited again today. Senior brother Jiang, have you been staying in the inner sect lately? Yeah. I've been busy with some matters. The spirit herbs in the spirit herb garden were still recovering. He needed to keep an eye on them. The other gardens had attempted to transplant the corpse realm flower, but they had failed. Upon learning that the Cliff of Broken Hearts had successfully transplanted it, they headed to Miao Tinglian's residence to ask her about it. I recently obtained a secret technique for cultivating the soil, but I'm not sure if it works, said Du Yong. I wanted to ask for your help, senior brother Jiang. A secret technique? Jiang Hao pretended to be confused. In his heart, he was glad that Du Yong was finally taking action. Yes. It's something that can't be easily explained. I want you to come to my place and take a look. When will you have some free time, senior brother Jiang? Du Yong asked. It was unexpected for Jiang Hao to be invited to other people's houses. Based on his understanding of the 9 extremes corpse dissolution technique, Chu Zhong, the current Du Yong, should have reached the primordial spirit realm. The danger was high. Jiang Hao couldn't get involved without knowing everything. He used the daily appraisal on Du Yong. Severed a part of his primordial soul? Jiang Hao was surprised. Why would he go to such lengths to deal with someone in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm? He couldn't understand why the enemy was so cautious. As for the heart, it must refer to the corpse heart. Jiang Hao wondered what had startled the enemy. Giving autonomy to the clone, does that mean the main body and the clone can't share memories? Some avatars needed to be controlled by the original body, and the original body could use the clone's senses to observe the surroundings. But granting autonomy to the clone would make it more difficult for the original body to immo about the clone's surroundings. Senior brother Jiang, when will you be available? Jiang Hao decided to give it a go. If he obtained the corpse heart, he could control Zhuang Yuzhen, and there would be a chance of finding out who Dan Yuan actually was. He just wasn't sure how strong the other clones of Chu Zhong were. If they were in the late or peak stage of the primordial spirit realm, he would use the rings to escape. Any time is convenient for me. It depends on you, senior brother Jiang. Du Yong smiled. Let's do it tomorrow afternoon. I should be done with my work by then, Jiang Hao said. Tomorrow, he could use the daily appraisal to check on the situation of the other clones. Okay. I'll come find you tomorrow. Du Yong nodded with a smile. He then turned and left. The next day, Jiang Hao used the Heaven Secret's hidden talisman and followed Du Yong to his house. It's in the courtyard. Du Yong led the way. Jiang Hao nodded and looked at the courtyard ahead. There were faint glimmers coming from the courtyard. It was a formation. As he arrived in the courtyard, he noticed that there was indeed dirt on the ground, as if Du Yong had been experimenting with the soil. But before he could take a closer look, he felt the formation activate. Wait a moment, senior brother Jiang. Let me perform the technique for you to see, then you'll understand, Du Yong said. Jiang Hao observed him without interrupting, but he remained vigilant. He was on guard against any sudden movements. He had also prepared the 1,000 miles teleportation talisman, just in case. Chapter 246, Chapter 246, Not even a single penny. Chapter 246, Not even a single penny. Jiang Hao suddenly thought of something while watching Du Yong perform his technique. If I lure a disciple out of the sect and kill them, will the law enforcement hall still investigate the matter? I should ask Liu Xingchen about it. At this moment, the surrounding formation activated, and Jiang Hao felt a familiar sensation. He was being teleported. If Du Yong had attacked while he was experiencing the fuzzy feeling, he would have succeeded. However, Jiang Hao endured the dizziness and stepped forward. Sure enough, he felt an attack coming from behind. It was an attack on the level of the primordial spirit realm. Boom! The 9 heavens battle armor protected him by blocking the impact from behind. Using his momentum, Jiang Hao leaped to the edge of the mountain peak. He turned around and looked back. There was a woman near Du Yong who was still dizzy from teleportation. She was in a blue dress with a white belt tied around her waist. Her black hair was tied up in a simple bun. Her skin was unusually pale. Her delicate face showed surprise. Jiang Hao was also somewhat surprised that the clone was a woman. Her cultivation was at the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm, just like his own. In that case, Chu Zhong's original body should be at the late or peak stage of the primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao could see two peaks side by side. That was Twin Cloud Peak. He wasn't very far from the Heavenly Note sect. They were currently on top of one of the peaks. So, you managed to evade me? And you have a treasure that is in the primordial spirit realm. It seems like we have a problem. The woman in blue spoke with a crisp and pleasant voice. May I ask who you are? Jiang Hao asked. At this point, he activated the daily appraisal. Enchantment. Jiang Hao always got a headache when it came to enchantments. He hadn't studied enchantments after being discovered reading a book on them by Hong Yuye. Now, he couldn't be sure whether the enchantment was working on him or not. A divine corpse with autonomy. Jiang Hao didn't need to worry about revealing his secret since this clone didn't share memories with Chu Zhong. I'm Liu Yun. Liu Yun pushed Du Yong aside. Du Yong had already lost his divine sense, and his consciousness had transferred to Liu Yun. Liu, you aren't an ordinary human, are you? Asked Jiang Hao. Am I not beautiful enough for you? Liu Yun asked as she took a step forward. Not really. Jiang Hao shook his head. Why don't you have any thoughts when you look at me? Liu Yun was already closer to him. If she took a step further, she could prevent Jiang Hao from jumping off the cliff and escaping. Because I already know the two words I need to know about, Jiang Hao said with a smile. What are they? Liu Yun asked. Jiang Hao smiled. Chu Zhong. As soon as Jiang Hao said the name, Liu Yun froze. She looked astonished. What did you say? Your name, said Jiang Hao. You, Liu Yun looked shocked. Jiang Hao made his move. The half-moon blade emerged from its sheath and shone brightly. He used the first form of the heavenly blade, moonslaying. Liu Yun also made her move. Ice spikes appeared under her feet as she attacked Jiang Hao. Both of them launched their attacks. Whoosh! They both dodged each other's attacks. Jiang Hao leaped up and slashed with the half-moon blade once again. Purple energy surged around the half-moon blade. Jiang Hao then used the second form of the heavenly blade, mountain suppression. The immense pressure suppressed everything around it. He had used the mountain suppression technique that was stored in his wrist guard. Ice began to form around Liu Yun. It surrounded her and then shot forward to attack. Boom! Crack! The immense pressure of mountain suppression shattered the ice. Boom! The blade cut through everything and slashed at Liu Yun, severely injuring her with a single strike. Gritting her teeth, Liu Yun once again performed her technique. At this moment, moonlight reflected in her eyes. Her arm flew into the sky. Purple energy appeared before her once again. A silver blade pierced through her body. It shattered the spiritual energy she had gathered. Liu Yun, with only one arm intact, looked at the man who suddenly appeared before her. His hand was around the hilt of the saber, which was buried in her chest. It took all of her spiritual energy away. My name is Liu Yun, not Chu Zhong, she said with difficulty. Jiang Hao was stunned. At this moment, Liu Yun's power turned violent. Jiang Hao drew his blade and slashed at her without hesitation. The blade stabbed repeatedly through Liu Yun's body. She flew backward and crashed into a rock. Liu Yun fell to the ground with no life left in her. Liu Yun. Jiang Hao thought it was Chu Zhong controlling Liu Yun. He had no idea that Liu Yun was her own self. He had no way of knowing the truth. She was already dead. He wanted to ask her about the corpse heart and Zhuang Yuzhen. However, he had found no window for a conversation. Jiang Hao picked up her storage treasure and went through it. Not even a single spirit stone. Then he picked up Du Yong's storage treasure. It was empty as well. Chu Zhong was stingy. He slashed at the corpse 2 more times to make sure it was dead. Jiang Hao started a fire to burn the corpse. After the fire went out, He also left the place. He didn't rush back. He arrived at one of the peaks and placed the box on the ground. Then he backed away a little and opened the box. In an instant, a powerful aura extended from the box. Jiang Hao was vigilant. He unsheathed the half-moon blade. Soon, a bright red heart appeared in his sight. Although it had no body, it was still beating ceaselessly. Thump, thump, thump. The beats were unusually loud. It pulsated with life. After observing for a moment, Jiang Hao used the universe in a palm technique to encase the heart in a purple sphere. It floated on his palm. The heartbeat stopped, and the aura dissipated. I wonder if this sealing method can prevent it from absorbing the aura of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. After storing the heart in a small sphere, Jiang Hao destroyed the box. The box had a peculiar aura, and he was concerned about it being traced back to him. He didn't want to keep it. He then used the golden ring to teleport to his courtyard directly. Jiang Hao then headed to the spirit herb garden. He needed an alibi. If Du Yong's death was investigated, the law enforcement hall might come after him. He needed the people in the spirit herb garden to see him there so that they could vouch for him. He also needed to be cautious about the corpse heart. He didn't want any trouble. Chapter 247, Chapter 247, Caught by the Demoness Again. Chapter 247, Caught by the Demoness Again. At the Candlelight Pill Pavilion, inside the alchemy room close to the earth. Fire, Lian Daoji paced helplessly. He was attempting to break through to the primordial spirit realm, and it was harder than he had expected. He had failed again. However, he was absolutely confident that success was only a matter of time. Moreover, he had already found the right pills. He only lacked the final spirit herb. That spirit herb wasn't impossible to find. It was just a bit rare. At this moment, a Foundation Establishment Realm disciple, who had been waiting for a long time, came up to him nervously. "Senior brother, the bitter fruit has been intercepted." The bitter fruit, as its name suggested, had a very bitter taste. However, it could balance other flavors and adjust spiritual energy appropriately. There were many spirit herbs for adjusting spiritual energy, but among them, the bitter fruit had a relatively low side effect. Intercepted. Lian Daoji's face darkened. There were 5 of you at the late stage of Foundation Establishment Realm and 2 at the peak of Foundation Establishment Realm. You couldn't keep a fruit safe. Lian Daoji wouldn't have used this fruit if he wasn't refining a relatively obscure pill. The bitter fruit was of low value. However, some alchemical solutions required such things. Otherwise, why would they go to such lengths? It was a cunning enemy that suddenly appeared out of nowhere, said the disciple in the Foundation Establishment Realm. They tricked us. It's not far from here, and Azure Mountain doesn't have the guts to come here. Does that mean, is it someone from the sect? Lian Daoji asked. He needed to get the fruit. He still had 10 days to use it. The assailant was a beast in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment Realm. Its movements were unpredictable. We couldn't find it at all. We couldn't keep up with its speed, said the nervous disciple. But it was wearing a collar. It must belong to one of the seniors in the sect. A beast in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment Realm, and wears a collar, muttered Lian Daoji as he stared at his junior. Does it call itself Lord Beast? Yes. It said something about having powerful friends. Lian Daoji sighed. Tell me in detail what actually happened. The group had sealed off the area and waited for the bitter fruit to ripen, but the beast had somehow entered the formation and plucked the fruit right in front of everyone. They chased after it but were tricked. In the end, it got away. You are useless, said Lian Daoji. The junior disciple lowered his head and remained quiet. Lian Daoji knew only one person who owned a beast like that. Jiang Hao from the Cliff of Broken Hearts. The matter wasn't easy to handle. Lian Daoji would have used threats and intimidation if it were any other disciple in the Foundation Establishment Realm. However, Jiang Hao was different. Apart from their cooperation in planting spirit herbs, Jiang Hao had several merits to his name. His latest achievement was when he had been able to complete the sect's mission by growing the Corpse Realm flower. If he was discovered, the Cliff of Broken Hearts might take action. After all, this achievement had brought many benefits to Cliff of Broken Hearts. If the person who had contributed to such benefits was harassed, the branch might protest. That was partly the reason Lian Daoji was hesitant to act. Next was the Hall of Merits. With such achievements, Jiang Hao was probably mentioned there. Lian Daoji couldn't go against that. If he did, the Hall of Merits might demand spirit stones for the damage caused. It seems I have to make a small trip. The next day, Jiang Hao appraised the corpse heart. It seems like there is no problem for now. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. He would continue sealing it layer by layer each day. After sealing the corpse heart, he began sealing the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. After completing these tasks, he looked around to make sure that no one was watching. Then he took out the book on enchantments. He intended to read through the contents once again. He sat under the peach tree, enjoying the cool summer breeze while flipping through the book. After a while, he heard a soft laughter in front of him. It seems you're very interested in enchantments. Jiang Hao instinctively closed the book and looked up. He only saw empty air in front of him. Slowly, a red figure materialized. She sat on a wooden chair and gazed at Jiang Hao. This was the first time Jiang Hao had seen Hong Yuye appear. Senior. What cultivation realm are you in? Hong Yuye reached out and picked up the book on the table. Middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, Jiang Hao said. How old are you? Hong Yuye asked. 24, Jiang Hao said. Middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm at 24? That's a bit slow, Hong Yuye said as she casually flipped through the book. I don't have very high talent at cultivation. Hong Yuye chuckled. I gave you a ladder, and you actually climbed up. Jiang Hao lowered his head and remained silent. How is your undercover mission going? Hong Yuye's gaze remained on the book. I have established a foothold in the gathering and will soon be able to find out why the Great Thousand God sect sent people to the Hidden Cloud Prefecture. The person who tried to snatch the heavenly fragrance Dao flower could also reveal some information, Jiang Hao said. This was the progress he had made in the past 2 years. Although he was far from finding out who exactly was behind the stone tablets, he was still a step ahead. Hong Yuye stopped flipping through the book and looked at Jiang Hao. She was a little unaccustomed to him being truthful. Have you discovered anything else? She asked. In the gathering, Xing is likely someone of authority. I suspect he is from the Bright Moon sect. He said he could obtain the secret technique of the Clear Sky School called the Freeform Technique. He already has the Bright Moon sect's technique, Myriad Bodies. Jiang Hao envied it a little. He didn't plan to cultivate it himself, but having a clone to do things was convenient, like Chu Zhong. Although he had lost 2 clones and the corpse heart, his main body had escaped unscathed. No one could find him, even if they tried. From the beginning, he had planned to retreat once the plan started. It seems you are fully focused on this. Hong Yuye stared at him. Senior, when doing tasks for you, I don't hold back on my efforts. It wasn't like he had a choice. He was constantly worried about Gui finding out about his identity, or that he might face Chu Zhong's other clone. Every day he delayed was a day wasted. Hong Yuye smiled faintly, lowered her head, and continued reading the book. Make some tea. Hong Yuye hadn't visited for a long time, so there was still plenty of tea left. He didn't need to spend spirit stones to replenish it anytime soon. Tell me about your experience at the gathering, Hong Yuye said. Jiang Hao prepared the tea and sat down at the table. He poured a cup for her and for himself. Then he began to recount the events of the gathering. He didn't hide anything. When he told her about Liu looking for the Clear Sky School's freeform technique and the Bright Moon sect's myriad bodies, she shook her head. The myriad bodies and freeform technique are just superficial methods. Are there other techniques? Jiang Hao asked curiously. Well, the technique would be the myriad bodies, but that isn't used for recultivation. It is used in line with another secret technique, Hong Yuye said. What secret technique? Jiang Hao asked. The shifting star technique. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,